At this time, we can call the meeting to order. Can y'all hear me?
Is it on?
I don't think it's on. Hello?
There you
Oh,
go.
there it is.
Okay.
Now you got it.
Start over. This time.
At this time, we are going to call our meeting to order.
Stand for both pledges.
Stand for both pledges.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge allegiance to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, one indivisible.
Jeez, this is going to be a text message about midnight tonight.
It's okay.
Before we begin our meeting, I would just like to say that Ms. Cantu will not be attending tonight because she is recuperating from her orthopedic surgery, and our Vice President, Ann Halsey, is running a few minutes late. And now we will begin with the superintendent's report. Or,
Public forum.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm learning. Please be patient. We will now begin with our public forum. And we will begin with our first speaker, Mr. Dan Lyon.
There she is.
Good evening, Madam President and trustees. I think I feel a little better now after seeing how badly the Pledge of Allegiance was conducted. But anyway, this evening I would like to speak about several crises which we as a school district face. I see these as economic, academic, and moral issues. According to the San Marcos CISD Debt Transparency Form 2021 PDF, the total authorized debt obligations the district owes are $219,425,000. Combined principal and interest required to pay all outstanding debt obligations on time and in full is $317,254,880. Our total authorized debt obligation secured by ad valorem taxation expressed as a per capita amount is $3,070, and with principal and interest the per capita amount is $4,439. In other words, the debt is $4,439 for every man, woman, and child in the district. In spite of this crushing debt, you, the majority of the members of the school board, voted to give away a valuable piece of property. You further voted to demolish the administration building and move to a building in which you are paying over $12,000 per month, or about $250,000 per year. My point in saying all of this is to make it clear that we have no money to pay for items 8B and 8D. These proposals, especially at this time, are, in my opinion, not even something which a responsible adult would make. What is wrong with you? These proposals are completely unsustainable. As far as academics go, we score right at the bottom 20% on standardized tests compared to the rest of the districts in the state of Texas. Texas does not rank among the top states in a nation which ranks near the bottom of the industrialized world in math and science. As far as our moral crisis, I hope that we aren't following the national trend of having sex education introduced in elementary schools. I would like y'all all to remember that ABCs come before LGBTQ plus and whatever else that you want to put down on us. But anyway, thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Mejia, for convening the meeting. My apologies, everybody. I was picking up a kid. Do we have other people signed up for public comment? Okay, then at this time, we will move out of public forum and into the superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the board, good evening, and thank you for joining us this fine evening. We have some wonderful presentations for all the great work that we're doing. Before we bring our students in, if we could have Dr. Rosina Valle, please come up as we honor some members of a foundation that does some great work for the students of San Marcos.
Thank you, Board of Trustees, Dr. Cardona. I am here today, was invited by the district to come say a few words in conjunction with National Volunteer Month. And the San Marcos Education Foundation has been organized since 1995. I've been involved with the foundation for about that time. I think in 1997 I was a recipient of one of the, at that time we called them the mini grants. We've since then moved into innovative teaching grants, and those amounts begin anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 to a campus, to a group at each of the campuses that applies for a innovative teaching grant. So just to tell you a little bit about what the foundation has done over the years, and we have members that have been part of that organization since then. One of them is with us tonight since 1995. We're very much about supporting the district. We do everything. I think we are the only organization that raises funds and awards them to teachers that will directly impact the classroom. So, you know, we have a lot of PTAs and boosters and PTOs that assist schools, you know, everything from playground support to recognitions. But we are the only group that raises money, and we also believe very much in recognizing our students and staff. So our signature events include the Teacher of the Year reception. Last year, even with COVID, we participated in the drive-by parade, and we now award each of the Teacher of the Years a $600 cash award and an additional $600 for the overall elementary and secondary teacher. We recognize our distinguished scholars. For many years, it was, you know, discussed that we sometimes forget about those top 10, top 11. And so we have began over 20 years ago to recognize our top scholars with a very nice reception, a little monetary gift, and then they, in fact, turn around and recognize an outstanding teacher that have been part of their life. We also have our Distinguished Alum event, and we now are up to over 150 distinguished alum that we recognized every year during homecoming festivities. And I think what we are here today to just thank our volunteers who are community people, families. I mean, we have parents, we have community people, we have people that were not born and raised here, but they got here as soon as they can, and they continue to support our district because they believe in our district. And they want our students and our teachers not to be without some really creative and innovative ideas. So I'm going to call out some people that are not here. We understand there was a train and that has kept some people away, but the current board members include Dr. Jeff Alt, Ellen Alt, Rose Brooks, Dr. Cardona, Aaron Calkins, Stella Contreras, Brooke Dameron, Sandra Ellison, Margaret Ennis, Andrew Fernandez, Kevin Gilly, Ann Halsey, John Hardy, Margaret Lindsay, Sandra Lopez, Marissa McLaughlin, John Navarrete, Ed Rios, Kelly Solinder, Brooke Spreel, myself, Kristen Wingard, Lance Winter, Melissa Yeager, Jennifer Rogers, Joey Castillo, Amy Kennedy, and Joanne Gillen. And they represent businesses, organizations, and we just wanted to thank you all that you all make it very easy to support the school district, and we are here for you.
Thank you.
Come up to the front.
So Margaret Lindsay, Rose Brooks is here, and Rose is one that has been on the board since 1995. She's a founding member. Marissa McLaughlin, Ellen Alt, and Ann Halsey is here as well.
We really appreciate the members of SMEF and everything they do for our teachers and for our students. But the real reason I think why we're here is for students. And so at this time, I'd like to call up David Underwood, our coordinator of fine arts. And we have quite a few groups to present. And I think this is indicative of this board's commitment to support all kids in the district. Not some kids, but all kids.
I think before we lose Dr. Valle, though, we should make a shout out and remind everybody that the annual SMEF fundraiser is in September. It's a skeet shoot. It's a lot of fun. If you want to put together a team, if you just want to make a donation, get in touch with Dr. Valle.
Correct.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Cardona and Vice President Halsey, and members of the board for allowing me this moment. Tonight we will celebrate immense successes in the Fine Arts Department, and we will be parading students through the board meeting to celebrate student and teacher successes that have occurred over the last few weeks. It's an incredible list of achievements, and that's only able to have been accomplished because of your support, because of the talents that are within our students, and because of the dedicated teaching staff. Before the parade begins, there's a few groups that are not able to be with us tonight, and I wanted to be able to celebrate those through pictures on the screen. So the first one is our Goodnight Middle School Orchestra under a first-year teacher, Carlos Alvarado. They received a superior rating in concert and an excellent rating in sight reading.
Wow.
The Goodnight Middle School Tenor Bass Choir also received a superior rating in concert under the direction of choir teacher Savannah Bowen. Note in the picture how excited these students are as she's announcing to them the results of a superior concert rating.
All right.
The Miller Middle School Non-Varsity Band received a superior rating in sight reading. So they actually had 3 1s in sight reading, receiving a near perfect score. Wow. And then we have a group, the San Marcos High School Mariachi Nuevo Cascabel. Now they're actually here, some of them, but I didn't think they would. They were a lot. Mr. Cavazos was up in Austin at the AISD concert and sight reading for guitar, and they actually made it back, but I didn't tell him to be earlier. So we're going to recognize him again in just a little bit, but I want to let you know that this group has performed a lot over the past few weeks. We've been benefit of that as well at the State of the City address and amongst others, and this group has done a lot of performing, but they advanced to UIL State Mariachi Festival for the first time in several years.
Yay.
The next group that is not able to be here tonight is the Regional Vase Medalist. There were 32 San Marcos High School art students that received first place medals at the regional vase competition, and 2 of those students are going to be going on to the state level competition. We're hosting that competition here at San Marcos High School on April 30th. So if you want to come between 9:30 and 2 o'clock, you can see some of the fantastic art that is going to be on display during that time. Again, that's a Saturday. So you're welcome to be here. Here's some art that was actually part of the regional vase. I just wanted to give you a couple of different examples. You can see the 3D art, that's clay art, and then you have oil and pastels. And you know, if SEL is a part of fine arts, which I think that it is, look at this bottom left picture. That's just an expression of a person's feelings. Mm-hmm. And then this is a kraken in multiple parts that is displayed. If you were here at STEAM Fair, then you got to see this in the art exhibit that was over in our library. All right, the next students are here. So we're ready to celebrate the parade of students.
Oh.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Cardona, please come around to the front of the boardroom table and greet the parade of students that we celebrate. I'll act as the parade marshal, if you will, and let you know what group is being celebrated for, and that they've come in to take a picture with you as a group.
While they are coming in, just a little plug for State Vase. So we started hosting State Vase right before COVID hit, and State Vase will bring about 3,000 students and their parents for the weekend to San Marcos. So it's a great economic driver on top of showcasing our high school campus. So we will have 3,000 students in the SAC from all across the state, and that's because our art teachers here. And none of that's measured in an accountability rating, but I think it's good for kids, and I think it's good for the city.
All right, so first up, our San Marcos High School band, solo, and ensemble students. Go on up, guys. They're advancing to the state solo and ensemble competition that will take place in May. These students are under the direction of Nathan Rolfe and Damon Knight. All right, the next students are San Marcos High School choir solo and ensemble students, also advancing to state in May. That will take place. All right, here they come. Our soloists and choir advancing to state. There are 37 students that received ones, and there were 22 solos and one ensemble that are actually advancing to the state level competition in May. They are under the direction of Ms. Dawn Sheridan-Reinhuber and Ms. Brigitte Smith-Rolfe. All right.
Congratulations, ladies. Congratulations.
Okay, next up will be our orchestra students and guitar students that are advancing to state solo and ensemble. They're under the direction of Gabriel Balderrama, and then the guitar students are under the direction of Juan Cavazos. And this is also our mariachi director that took his group to state mariachi as well. I had them in order.
Yeah, you know they're high school kids.
In orchestra, we had 11 students receive a superior rating that are going to be going on to the state solo and ensemble, including an honor string quartet and a string trio and 5 soloists. In guitar, 9 soloists received superior ratings and will be going on to state solo and ensemble. And these are your directors, Gabriel Balderrama and Juan Cavazos.
Congratulations.
All right. Now, before we get to one-act play, cast and crew, which is supposed to be next, I wanted to take a second to recognize the San Marcos High School students that participated in the musical Rent in the fall semester. Miss Rowe, who you see pictured here, and the cast of the musical were invited to the Heller Awards for Young Artists this past week because of the first, and this is for the first time ever in San Marcos history, that several students and Miss Rowe were nominated individually for their performance or contributions toward the musical. And so pictured here is Ms. Rowe, the director, who received the Best Direction Award at the Heller Awards for Young Artists at the Long Center. So Ms. Rowe, come on up. Ms. Rowe, this is your individual picture. All right. And now, for another moment in history, for the first time in about 13 years, the San Marcos High School Theater Arts one-act play succeeded in placing in one of the top area performances, advancing in district and even further to by district. So students, come on up. I'll just make note that in addition to the honor of moving on to by district, there were also several individual students that were recognized for their individual performances within the musical as well and received individual honors on top of the cast.
Great job. And they're performing this weekend, aren't they?
We're performing this weekend. $10 for adults and $5 for students. So please come support us. Yes. It's going to be great.
Shameless plugs.
Bring a friend. Okay.
They're not shy. I know.
Congratulations.
Okay, the next group, they may or may not be here. I didn't see him before the meeting began. The Miller Treble Choir is under the direction of Mr. Mario Contreras. And it's not trouble, it's treble.
It's fine arts.
So they received, now I'm just going to kind of start off with this. UIL concert and sight reading requires that everything that you practiced is part of your concert, and it is judged to a T. And they listen, they look at the music, the judges listen for blend, they listen for mistakes, they listen for continuity, they listen for anything and as musical as it can be, they're listening for that. And so if you get a 1 or a superior rating, that's great. We've already talked about that earlier. But then you also, if you get a 1 in sight reading, seeing a piece of music for the first time, having 7 minutes to look through that music, and for the first time receive only direction verbally from the director, and then on a downbeat have to be able to sing the entire thing from start to finish. And so the concert and sight reading, in order to be able to get a sweepstakes, you have to have a 1 both in concert and sight reading. And so Mario Contreras and the Miller Choir, both the treble choir and also the tenor bass choir, which we'll see here shortly, both received sweepstakes under his direction. Okay, the next group is our Miller Middle School Dance. They had several awards at the Ascension Dance Competition, and so are they here? Okay. All right, so I'll just announce these very quickly. Their captain had a first place solo. Their first lieutenant, Ava Maldonado, had third place solo. Team Palm, second place. Team Kick, first place. Team Hip Hop, first place. First runner-up grand champions. Officer Contemporary, second place. Officer Jazz, first place, and the highest scoring dance of the contest. Officer Lyrical, second place, and the grand champions for officers. Duet, Melena Perkins and Addie Calkins were first runner-up in the overall judges award. So it's an incredible showing from the Miller Middle School Dance. Next up is as I told you, we would have Miller Middle School tenor and bass choir. I was trying to give him a second to go back around and be able to get the next group, but they're not here. But they also received concert and sight readings in sweepstakes. Okay, so next up will be our Miller Middle School Orchestra. Just to let you know, is Corinne Bean out there? No? Okay. All right. Miller Middle School Orchestra also received a concert and sight reading sweepstakes. They have played beautifully all year long, and I hope you get a chance to listen to them. They have done a phenomenal job, and this, once more, was an opportunity to demonstrate that, and they performed wonderfully. Perfect ones all the way across. Our next group will be our Goodnight Varsity Band under the direction of Mr. Nick Conti. I know he's here. This was his varsity band that performed. And here come his students who received a UIL concert and sight reading sweepstakes.
Y'all get to squeeze in. Squeeze in.
Yeah, there you go. Short people in front. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, stay there. Let your parents come and take a picture.
Next up, our Goodnight Middle School dance under the direction of Amy Wolf also was at Ascension dance competition. And I want to let you know that between our two middle schools, they pretty much cleaned house. They took everything. Goodnight Dance had first place Team Jazz, first place Team Lyrical, first runner-up Team Contemporary, first place Team Palm. Judges Award for Team Routines, all scored over a 90 and on a scale of 100. Team Grand Champion, first place Officer Lyrical, first runner-up Officer Jazz, first place Officer Contemporary. Judges Award for Officer Routines, Reserve Grand Champion for Officers, second runner-up Duet, first place Duet, second runner-up Solo for 7th grade, fourth runner-up for 8th grade Solo, third runner-up for 8th grade Solo, first runner-up for 8th grade Solo. So between the two programs, they really did clean house, and this is a wonderful program over at Goodnight, and I hope you get to see them perform their spring show. All right, the San Marcos High School Treble Choir, also under the direction of Dawn Sheridan Reinhuber and Brigitte Smith-Rolfe, also received concert and sight reading sweepstakes. So they had great soloists, and now they've had a sweepstakes for the Treble Choir. He's a booster.
Good job. Great job.
Okay? And to continue to wear out your hands and also to recognize our students, don't get lazy on me. Let's continue to make sure that we're pounding through. The San Marcos High School Men's Choir, also under the direction of these two ladies, also earned sweepstakes at concert and sight reading. And then we have one more group for them. This makes a triple sweepstakes for our choir program here at San Marcos High School. The mixed choir also had a sweepstakes in concert and sight reading. It's hard for some to just get one. For these two ladies to have 3 choirs to get sweepstakes is phenomenal. Our next group up is actually a combination of our band program as well as the orchestra to actually create a full orchestra. And they only had so many practices to get prepared for this, but they worked very diligently, very hard in order to make this happen. The full orchestra also received a concert and sight reading sweepstakes for San Marcos High School under the direction of Gabriel Balderrama, Nathan Rolfe, and Damon Knight. The picture that's up right now is the full orchestra picture. You can see how many students are involved in order to make that happen. And then our next group would be the chamber orchestra, who also had several of these students that were a part of that, and they also received their own concert and sight reading without the band instruments as a part, just the orchestra by themselves. A little smaller group also had a concert and sight reading sweepstakes. Okay. All right, we're going to put it in rewind for a second, and we're bringing up this group. And don't worry, they're not going to play a trumpet behind you or in front of you today, as they did at the State of the District address. Again, this is the first time in several years that they have been able to get to the State Mariachi Festival, and these kids are really phenomenal, under the direction of Juan Cavazos. And our last group tonight, before you're offered hand sanitizer if you were having to touch them, is our spirit leaders. The San Marcos High School Diamond Line and Dazzlers, under the direction of Michelle Knight. Now, these dancers have earned 3 grand champion titles in the HTE Dance Hill Country Championship, the Showtime International Dance Competition Grand Champions, the Showmakers of America Dance Competition Grand Champions, and lastly, but not least, the HTE Dance Team Champions, named National Champion Team and Officers. Thank you, school board. Thank you, Dr. Cardona, for the opportunity to be able to give you a look at the hard work that has taken place here at San Marcos High School and also our middle schools. We're celebrating them tonight because they deserve it, and we're also celebrating your effort and your support for them. So thank you so much for that.
Right.
Thank you for that. I think next time, though, we get promised a parade, I do want the trumpets. That was great.
Madam President, item C is just a document that's in your board book that was provided regarding legal expenses that was asked by trustees. It's section B. I won't go over all of that. All of y'all are capable of reading it. And I want to thank, I think Mr. Underwood leave. I want to thank him for all his hard work, taking over as coordinator. We didn't have a coordinator of fine arts, and so now you have somebody who's invested in his children, and just so the community who's watching live stream, none of this is in accountability ratings, but 100% of it is what's best for kids. And we're, with the blessing of this board and the encouragement of this board, we really appreciate that you can see kids are involved in multiple activities, some in dance, some in orchestra, some in choir. We have baseball players are in choir. I think that makes for a better kid and a better citizen, and we're going to continue to do that with the support of this board. So I appreciate y'all's support. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cardona. At this time, the board is going to move into closed session as authorized by section 551.071 and 551.074 of the Texas Education Code. The time is 7:47, and the board will now take action on the item discussed in closed session. Agenda item A, a discussion including consultation with legal counsel regarding proposed non-renewal of Director of Curriculum and Instruction Amber Owens' term contract. Do I have a recommendation regarding the non-renewal of Amber Owens' employment contract, Mr. Superintendent?
Members of the board, I recommend that the Board of Trustees accept the administration's recommendation to propose the non-renewal of Amber Owens' term contract for the reasons discussed in closed session, to authorize me to provide notice to Ms. Owens, and to designate Marisela Cavazos' attorney to conduct the non-renewal hearing if requested by Ms. Owens on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Is there a motion from the board to accept the superintendent's recommendation?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion by Hanson, second by Salmi. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries 7-0. At this time,
6-0.
6, sorry. We are missing Trustee Cantu tonight. At this time, we will move back into our regular schedule and do the reports and information items, beginning with the academic update.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Cardona. This evening, I am here along with my team to present the April academic updates. I want to start by extending a thank you to San Marcos High School for obtaining a 94% participation rate during our EOC English 1 and 2 tests last week. This high level of participation would not be possible without the leadership of our campus principal, Mrs. Denisha Presley, her campus test coordinator, Mr. Thomas Dubner, the counselors, teachers, and of course our students and families. So that shows a huge commitment to make sure that as many students were present for EOC testing last week. So I wanted to start just by giving that information. As always, we are going to be bound by making sure that as a district we're focused on our student performance, the academic rigor, culture, achievement gaps, and community, and all elements of our academics. Our agenda for tonight will consist of, we will be giving an overview of our summer school schedule for this year. We will be giving an update on master scheduling at all levels. We will give an accountability update, and we will also talk about the credit recovery at this point in the year at San Marcos High School, and where we are with our ongoing equity audit that's being conducted across the district. So I'm going to start by talking about summer school. So if you look there, we have our summer school programming set to start in June. Starting with June 7th, which is at the very bottom, we will start with our high school. And we're starting with high school first. In a perfect world, we would be starting all on the same date, but there's various reasons why we're starting with high school first, followed by pre-K. At the high school level, we are required to administer retests for students who did not meet the passing standards on the EOC testing. So we wanted to start as soon as possible so that we can provide as many days of instruction during that window as possible. We are finishing on June 23rd, which is before the rest of summer school ends, and the reason being that last week is actually devoted to testing, so we have to make sure that we finish all of our instruction before that testing window, which is provided by the state. We have no leeway in determining when we retest, so we wanted to start as soon as possible so to provide the maximum number of instructional days as possible for our students at the high school level who will have to retest. If you look at June 8th through July 1st, which is our pre-K and K emerging bilingual students, their summer school will take place at Bonham Pre-K Center. And the thing about the pre-K and K emergent bilingual students, we are required by state statute to provide 120 hours of additional instruction time in the summer for that particular group of students. So in an effort to try to finish our summer school programming, the regular summer school programming by July 4th and give our teachers adequate time to be able to get some vacation time in and prepare for the new school year, we are going to be going Monday through Friday, and that has been the historical practice here in the past with our pre-K and K emergent bilingual program. June 13th through June 30th, we will start elementary and middle school accelerated instruction. That will take place at the elementary level. All elementary students will be at Mendez. All middle school students will be at Goodnight. This year, we will not be required to retest our elementary or middle school students if they did not perform satisfactorily on the STAR test. At the elementary level, we will be utilizing that time to use some of our new resources, Amplify for reading and Eureka for math. The great thing about using these resources during the summer is that we are able to count our minutes that students are with us during that time towards House Bill 4545, which states that every student must receive accelerated instruction if they did not perform at the passing standard on math or reading on the STAR test. And you are required to use certain materials in order to be able to count that time. So while there is no retest, we are still getting our students additional instruction and able to count that towards the minutes that they must have during the school year to count towards House Bill 4545. We will provide all of our teachers with preparation time. What we've tried to do our best with is we don't want our teachers to be overburdened with having to spend hours and hours of planning instruction. So a lot of the materials that they will be using, I won't say that they're already pre-designed, but there are a lot of materials that do lend itself to the teachers will not have to spend hours upon hours of planning time. So the preparation that you see there, a lot of it is just looking through the data that they'll have in front of them to know exactly who they'll be working with. Because of course you'll have teachers who'll be working with students that they never had in their classrooms before. So during that time, our expectation is, as far as teacher preparation goes, that you're spending time looking through the data to see what are the strengths of a student that you're working with, as well as what are areas of support that a student may need. So here we have what we're going to be looking at to determine who should come to summer school. And here's the thing I want to make sure I stress, and I stressed this to principals last week, that we are not going to turn away any family or any student who desires to attend summer school. But we must have some data points to look at as we're deciding who to initially invite so that we have an idea of how to appropriately staff summer school. But again, we're not turning away any families. Our principals are aware of this. So if there is a family who is interested in summer school, but let's say they don't get an invite, they are more than welcome to reach out to their campus principal, and we will make sure that we do accommodate that request. So when we look at the things that will be things that we consider for summer school. First and foremost, we're looking at attendance. We know that many of our students this year, attendance has dropped across the district, the state, and the country. So we're looking at students who have missed more than 10% of school days. That will definitely be something we're looking at. We're looking at students whose grades in their content areas were not passing. STAR for grades 3 through 8 at the reading and in the reading and math subjects. Credit recovery at the high school level, and then our EOCs in Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History, English 1 and 2 are the areas that we're looking at to determine who the ideal candidates would be for summer school. Again, keeping in mind that we're not going to turn away any families who so desire to have their student attend summer school. We will continue to have special education programs. Our special education programs will feature an extended school year, and we have 2 sessions there. We have a location at Mendez and a location at San Marcos High School. The thing to keep in mind about the extended school year is this will be an art-based decision for students, and so every student who receive special education services will not necessarily be a part of the extended school year. We're looking at students who show substantial regression as based on the goals in their IEPs. And again, that would be an art-based decision. So if you are a student who receives special education services, but you're in a co-teach setting, you would be invited to attend the regular summer school session, the general education summer school setting that will be held in June with regular education students. So the extended school year is more where there has been a substantial regression. We will have the autism camp hosted by Texas State, and that will be taking place throughout the month of July. Camp Spark will be a summer school program that is designed for our students who take part in resource class. So this will be an opportunity for them to get some additional support, and we will be using our Read 180 and System 44 programming, which is it's a resource that has been in the district for years, but we're reviving it, and it's a way to provide some of that phonics and basic literacy instruction that many of our students would benefit from, especially some of those elementary students who participate in resource classes. We will have an opportunity for summer enrichment programs. One thing that is not here that I'm excited to share is that we have been in contact with the public library, and they are going to be offering a number of enrichment opportunities for our students. We will actually have them coming next month to share some of that, but we will have an opportunity to offer some programs beyond just the required acceleration, including MathWorks, STEM camps, and all of these things have been hosted, to my understanding, in the past and been very successful in San Marcos, so we will continue to offer these as well. At this point, we have posted all of the summer school positions. They are online. We have summer school principals, summer school APs, we have teacher positions. We will once again offer the rate that was approved last year of $35 per hour for teachers. So we are in the hiring season for summer school as we speak, so anyone who's interested, please go to the website and apply. But we are looking forward to having a summer school where our students will benefit from getting some additional instruction, and one that hopefully will be engaging and will be an opportunity where we can do some, creative teaching outside of the box, and it's not just, prepare for a retest as we've had to do in the years past when we've had to have that retest at the elementary and middle school level. So I will take any questions that you may have regarding summer school.
I just have one quick question. Is the pre-K program being run by Texas State as in the past, or is this being run by the district?
The pre-K program will be run by the district.
And Trustee Mejia?
Mr. Sanders, thank you so much for providing us with this presentation. I really, really see all of the time and effort that you have put into it. I love that you are partnering with our neighbors to stay involved with the community, and I think we're all very excited to see how everything turns out. I have a special request for you. So when you mentioned the focal points of basically accepting students, At the end of the summer sessions, could you provide us a report of how many students were registered under each focal point?
Yes.
And, basically at the end of summer, whenever you do all of your reports, that's whenever I would like to see it. And then you talked about inviting students. Have you already sent out those invites, or when can we expect for those invites to go out?
We have not sent out invites yet. We gave this presentation to our principals last Thursday to make them aware and to let them know that we were posting the positions. So at this point, we have not sent any invites out, but we are looking within by the end of this month to have the invites sent out with a deadline established. And the reason for the deadline that we have to establish is to get transportation time to have all the routes prepared, so that they can adequately make sure that the kids get to and from school.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Arredondo?
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. My first question, going back to the two options, I guess 3 options. We have the pre-K through 12 summer school, the special education programming, and then the summer enrichment. I understand that summer enrichment is a voluntary program, so you might not be able to effectively forecast projected student enrollment in that program or in those programs. For the pre-K through 12 services that we're offering, the summer school, do you have a forecasted model as of right now of the students who will quote unquote be required to attend because of one of the factors up there?
I do not, but I can get that information to you all.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. I understand that that is going to be one of the driving factors in staffing for the summer. In addition to that, I've seen elsewhere where other ISDs are not only offering, the $35 an hour salary to service those programs. I understand it's a heavy lift asking staff to work through the summer after the previous 2 years. So, no guarantees where my colleagues are going to be on this issue, but I would be interested in having a conversation moving forward of additional incentives to incentivize employees to work during the summer, whether it's through the summer school, summer enrichment, or the special education programming, if necessary. So if that needs to come back from Dr. Baez as some type of budget amendment to pay for those summer school programs, I would individually be interested in and personally supportive of that. In addition to that, we are providing meals and transportation to any student in any summer program on the ISD campus, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Salmi?
Thank you. So my question was specifically about the summer enrichment programs. It says that they're hosted by Texas State and the Science Mill. Are those paid for out of pocket by families, or is this district financing those?
No, it's not paid for out of pocket for our students.
Okay, so students can enroll in those programs free of charge?
Yes.
And transportation is also provided for those programs as well?
Yes.
Fantastic. That's a wonderful program. Thank you.
I did have 2 follow-up questions, and they really will have bearing on the conversation we'll have later this evening, but I'm interested in students in 8th grade who do not pass the Algebra 1 end of course during the school year. What will the summer opportunity look like for those students? Will they take the recovery with the 8th grade at Goodnight? Will they be at the high school? What happens?
So they will be at Goodnight for receiving accelerated instruction. It will probably be using Edgenuity as the way to provide that instruction, and then they will have the retest option just as the high school students would, based on the fact that it is an EOC.
And that's the same model that will happen at the high school for 9th graders who...
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then my follow-up question with that, is there any part of the summer enrichment program that applies specifically to our sophomores and juniors, rising sophomores and juniors, in terms of college applications, military testing, test prep, etc.? Do we have programming developed for those students?
No, we currently do not. However, we are open to discussions about, we have had, as soon as today, we had conversations around extending some of our summer school program offering. So that is something definitely that we can take back to discuss what that exactly would look like in terms of the overall summer school program.
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Arredondo?
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. My last comment, and this might put Ms. Presley on the spot, and I don't need an answer this evening. When it comes to the, I guess, middle school and high school level, I'm curious when the required summer school programming is taking place and what overlap that might have with extracurriculars that participate and practice over the summer. Obviously, the outlier being, you know, if you're struggling in school, I don't know if you're eligible to participate in said extracurriculars, but if you are, I would hope that we are having conversations of making that an opportunity for students to where they're not having to give up summer participation in extracurricular activities to go to summer school. And so that can be if Ms. Presley has an answer to that, great. I'm just individually curious about that because I have never known how that works.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Arredondo. It's typically not an overlap. Summer school will usually end around the time that EOCs are administered, which is early July. And it's volleyball and band will have 2-a-days, football. It cuts real close. Usually that doesn't happen until after EOCs are administered. So we don't see overlap. There are opportunities for students to engage in like FAST camps and some of the different athletic camps and band camps as well throughout the summer, and that does happen in June and early July, and so students will have an opportunity to choose, and that's not what's mandatory. The mandatory participation falls more so after the 4th of July.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Presley.
Not any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. We'll move on.
Good evening, trustees. We started the discussion around master schedules very earlier in the year, and I worked very closely with Ms. Chapman, our director of SEL, with Ms. Presley at the high school, also with our middle school elementary principals. We wanted to put this together very early so that we had a very proactive plan for master schedules. The pages that we created, there are about 37 steps per campus to get those schedules done prior to the end of the school year, and I've only included a few bits and pieces along the timelines I don't want to share with you. Again, we started in November 8th around the master schedule. We've had committees come together to talk about what the type of schedule, when we're going to run it, looking at start-stop times. Those are not changing for the next year. As you know, we go a little bit longer in order to make up the time. Excuse me. Since the requirements changed from days to minutes, but we're leaving those start and stop times the same for next year. Started that discussion on November 8th. We started the discussion on December 15th around early college, high school recruitment, moving toward next year. And we started the campus tours in January, began those parent meetings, and that information started coming out, which brings us to the spring semester. March 25th, all course selections were completed and are in school links. And at this time, with the exception of a few students who were transient a little bit, we have everyone's course selections in school links. And as of the end of next week, parents will be able to see their PGPs, their requests in school links as well, so that will be open to parents to start seeing next year their 4-year plans. Excuse me, starting next week. On April.
Information with the PGP.
Sorry, that's a personal graduation plan. Each student is required to complete and have on file a graduation plan that that says starting their freshman year, these are all the classes I need to take, and this is where I'm going to be. So we're asking them to make life choices in 8th grade that we know are going to change over time. But we do have a valid plan to look at, are we on track? What changes do we need to make? And those are available. Parents are required to sign off on those plans, and we want to make those available starting next week. So thank you for that question. April 14th, last week, as you are aware, Monica Weaver's retired from our district, and she did a lot of work with the master scheduling and Power School. So one of the requirements we're making this year is that our assistant principals are much more involved, not only at the high school level, but at all levels in the creation of those master schedules. So last week, we trained the principals on master schedule building from Power School. And at the end of this week, those assistant principals and anyone else, teams of teachers will come together with our Power School trainer to actually have their training complete, so they're troubleshooting any particular questions or things they may have around master schedule. May 10th, all master schedules will be built and run for conflicts. One of the things that we found out from the committee and in meeting with the high school was that each district has a master course catalog for each grade level. There's an elementary, a middle school, and a high school. And the course catalog has to include all the classes we currently offer and a reference to classes we've offered in the past in case someone comes back asking for a transcript. So let's say we offered at the high school 6 years ago, we offered basket weaving. We don't offer that now, but if a student took that, we need a reference in our catalog as to how that was coded for the state. So that's information that has to stay there. What we found out was, excuse me, I'm sorry, the catalogs had been being added to every year but not updated by checking a box to move them in a section that doesn't include them in the running for the conflicts. So when high school was running the conflict matrix last year, it could take 4 or 5 hours just to run through the schedules, and that's a process that should be no more than 5 or 10 minutes. So we're working with Power School to have those things corrected and cleared. They're working on that at the same time as we're building our schedules. So as you can see, May 10th, our master schedule will be built and we'll start running for conflicts. That's when the counselors will go in and start making minor changes based on data as a student who may or may need a separate change. Our goal is for May 27th, I'm going to say this loud, we would like for all students' schedules to be visible in eSchool on May 27th, so that the day after the last day of school, a student can go on and see their schedule for the following year in eSchool. Now, we also know that STAR tests are going to play a part in that. We know grades aren't submitted until the 26th, so this is all based on the anticipation that all students are going to pass everything and they're going to receive what they signed up for. We know that there's some changes that will have to happen. That's when our counselors will come in, and we are going to start in August very early with secondary schedule changes based around data. We'll pull the list of students who failed the EOC and were unsuccessful in the summer. We'll use that data to make changes. We'll also look at students who are moving in and out to make those changes. So our goal of the 27th is very realistic, and we think we can meet that goal, knowing that there will be minor changes going in on the first day of school. But by the first day of school, every student will have a schedule with all their periods listed, and we should have minor changes in the 10-day window following that. Wow. So like I mentioned, there are about 35 steps per campus. I wanted to include a few of those. What questions do you have about where we are, where we're going?
Trustee Mejia.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
thank you so much for creating this timeline. It's really organized, and I'm looking forward to basically comments or feedback on how this works out for you.
Absolutely.
Moving forward. My question is, for January 7th, it says that that's the date that you conducted campus tours and parent meeting begins. So for campus tours, what does that consist of besides a tour of, the school?
So that was the start date. We didn't put every date that we had those. Those were the dates that middle school students were able to visit high school, and there were several dates around that time where they could go in and visit the high school to see what the courses were like, to start talking about what courses they may have. We offered some both virtually and in person, and I'm trying to remember, there was an issue around that time, it may have been the weather that held, or maybe COVID. I think there was a COVID resurgence as well. So we not only offered the students to come over to like the fifth graders to come to Miller and Goodnight, there were some virtual offerings as well. We tried to put as much in place to support parents who were unwilling to allow their students to go, to allow the virtual options. But that was when we opened a 3 or 4 week window that we kind of reached out and said, if you're interested in touring the campus, here we are. This is a night we have prepared. Other options, if you want to reach out to us individually, can do so. So that was what those tours and meetings look like. It's an odd year again, as I think that was the COVID, and I'm so ready for that word to go away. We had to, what they say, when times get tough, do you crumble, do you pivot? We pivoted. So we made sure we offered other things for parents to be able to do that. And those are still available. If it's for some reason a parent calls and says, I really would like a tour, they can reach out to the parent, to the campus principals and schedule those, and we can work around those. But we wanted to offer starting early in January, because the scheduling, the course selection process is timely, and it takes a little bit of time, and we wanted to make sure that we offered as much prior to that. And as soon as those were conducted and we had given a couple of weeks, we immediately started those timelines, the course request in school leagues.
Trustee Arredondo was next.
You can come back to me.
Trustee Salmi.
Thank you. And I also appreciate the timeline. I think the transparency in putting on dates is much appreciated by our families, myself included. One clarifying question, is eSchool Home Access Center, are those the same?
eSchool?
Your document says in eSchool on May 27th it will be available. Is that Home Access Center? As
That's
a
correct.
parent, I call it
Those
Home
are tied
Access.
together, yes.
Okay,
So
thank you.
wherever you would see your schedule.
Thank you.
Power School's the big umbrella, eSchool,
Understood.
all that stuff, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so my question is really around who is working on the course catalog updates. So the problem you mentioned of an extremely large course catalog, I understand that that's been a pretty extensive workload for staff to
So we
update
have
that?
had extensive, and Dr. Cardona can verify, I've come to him a couple of times saying, I need your help with reaching out. We've reached out to Power School on several occasions to try to get, they're the ones working on it. Power School's working to correct on their side. Any issues that we may have on our side, we're working with the technology department, Mr. Ubanek, if we need to have that done. But right now, we believe that they're able to make those changes to the course catalog. Again, not deleting anything, but selecting what's active and what's no longer needed to run through that process.
Okay.
So eSchool, and we should know by the end of, Denise, I'm going to lie, I think Cameron said this week we will know where we are with that. Again, and that's to speed up the process to run those conflicts. So eSchool is responsible for those changes, and there were some issues with access early on, but with the technology department was very helpful in making sure that the person at Power School had that access to do that on our behalf.
Okay, so has that support been provided by the district to our individual campuses, or have the campuses been responsible for that?
No, I've been working and coordinating with Power School, Mr. McPherson, and actually Kathy Odom working to make sure that she's representing the campuses and that, updating those catalogs and making sure that that's been done. So
Okay.
the principals were again trained last week, and then the teams who are actually doing the master schedules are being trained this week and early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Hansen?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but for the community and parents, what was the purpose or the reason for the campus tours, and give me a sample of what they look like?
What do you think the answer is? I'm just kidding.
That's your job.
No, we want to make sure that when we're transitioning to a new campus that our students have an opportunity to see where you're going, to make sure, Denisha offers a variety of fantastic CTE programs. I couldn't even tell you how many there are. And we want to make sure students get to kind of see that in action. It's one thing to look on a piece of paper and say, I want to take culinary arts. But to go and see the actual Culinary Arts Center, to say that's something I'm very interested in. Also to give the parents the opportunity to visit a campus they may not have visited. They may be new to middle school or new to high school. And so we wanted to provide that opportunity to all of them before the students chose what their courses were going to be. Some courses are basic. You're going to take English 1 as a freshman. You're going to take Algebra 2. You're going to take chemistry your sophomore year. There are certain things, but when it comes to CTE and those kind of things, we want to offer them that opportunity to start having those conversations. It's not a one-way street where we just tell you what to do. That's the purpose of PGPs and parents being involved in that process so that there's conversation around it. So, which is exactly what you were going to say, right?
Trustee Mejia?
So another question in regards to campus tours. Who are our employees that conduct these tours? Is it you, or would it be Mrs. Presley, or a teacher, someone from your team? Who would that be?
So earlier in January, early on, we coordinated with mainly the assistant principals and the principals to decide how they wanted those tours to go over. Example would be fine arts. We saw a lot of those great students here tonight. There are great fine arts programs at Goodnight and Miller, and I'll just use them as an example. So the tours were scheduled by the campus administration, and on those particular dates, the orchestra teacher, the choir teacher, those teachers may have been involved in a timeline to say, we're bringing them over this afternoon, put on a presentation for them. At this time, it would be individual, up to the campus principal to schedule those tours and to make those availability. So there may or may not be that option for the teacher to be involved, depending on the time of day. Obviously, if a parent wants to come over during the school day, we could take them to a class and show them what it looks like. So a variety of people, but predominantly the principal and assistant principals worked on those.
That's great, but have you thought about incorporating our students?
So we did talk as an opportunity. We didn't need to do it this year. One of the things that we came up with were actual, on each door, possibly during the pandemic, a QR code where maybe the students made a quick 2 to 3 minute video, and if I'm visiting and a teacher's not available, I could just take a picture with my phone and see that video. So we did not do that this year. It was a last minute. We didn't have time to put those together. But moving forward, that's definitely something we wanted to talk to. If the students are there, obviously they could be a part of that and on those scheduled dates. But that is something that's a great opportunity, and we would love to have that more student participation involved.
Well, and students were definitely included, because I can speak from personal experience that students at Miller and at the high school, when the students went on the tour, the students that were in the particular classrooms demonstrated various things and were able to answer questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely want to include them as much as possible in as many ways as we can.
Mm-hmm. So I love the idea that you're exploring that, and I was wondering if y'all have even thought about creating like a school ambassador program designated just for students. So they would just, do campus tours or just, represent campus.
That is something I'm familiar with. I've been in districts where those have happened, and they're fantastic. Definitely something we want to explore. We don't have that in place now, but that's a great idea for the future. And the way that they've worked on schools and campuses I've worked with is there are designated students on different days that if someone, we schedule something, or if someone shows up, even a new student, having an ambassador for a new student to say, I'm going to show you around. This is when you're registering. Here's the cafeteria. Here are the classes you're going to go to. And so the ambassador program is a great thing that works really, really well. And thank you for thinking that. Definitely something we'll start incorporating and look into.
I'd love for y'all to look into that.
Thank you. We definitely will.
Trustee Arredondo.
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate this timeline, and I think it speaks to, or it addresses a challenge that we experience this current academic year, and I appreciate that. But I would like to take this a step further. I've shared this with Dr. Cardona and a few members of the cabinet. This upcoming academic year, knock on wood, is hopefully the first normal year that our ISD and all ISDs will experience after the past 2 years. Because attendance continues to be a challenge, and you mentioned not just for us, but the state and the nation, I'm very interested in understanding what goals or what value system we have put in place to ensure that our students are participating in this master schedule in extracurricular activities. I think we saw during the awards and recognitions portion of this meeting that typically the students who are in those extracurricular programs are higher achieving, their attendance is better, they're participating, they're engaged, and those peripheral mental health issues might not be as prevalent or present because of that. And so I know several years ago when Ms. Presley presented a campus master schedule, it was how do we build not only supports into those master schedules, but how do we build in opportunities? So I'm curious about that.
So I appreciate that. Thank you for that question. That's something we've talked about, and I will say there are two things that come to mind specifically. Earlier in the year, we were looking at some programming changes that may affect the number of electives that students at middle school took, but we were very committed to making sure they had 3 electives and not changing that. So we were able to come up with some different ideas that honored that and made sure that that particular piece stayed in place regardless of the programming changes. So our team got together and became very creative with the scheduling around that. So that was one thing that even, not just at the district level, but even at our level in the Office of Academics, that Mr. Sanders is very adamant about maintaining opportunities for electives and extracurricular things for students. So that's one. The second is I think we've worked very closely with Ms. Presley and our team at the high school just in general to look at how we could schedule things a little differently. And not tonight, but you'll see that there are a couple of changes in the high school master schedule that, and these are horrible, it's a horrible, I don't know how to say it. It's a horrible name for a schedule, but it's old school, and it's called a fat, skinny schedule, where there are a couple of courses that are 50 minutes every day, and a couple that are 90-minute block to allow for that, which allows for additional opportunities for students to have not another course, but actually to have more courses spread throughout. So we're making a commitment, and as things like House Bill 4545 and other initiatives come into play, it's just having those conversations and making sure that we're still committed to keeping students on the correct pathway. One of the things you'll see in a few minutes during Dr. de Villanueva's presentation is the number of students who are in CTE. And without giving away all her thunder, we have more students taking we have more classes of CTE than number of students enrolled, which means some students are taking 2 or 3 CTE courses, which is again going to that, adding to that level of involvement and that level of participation. So that's something that we're committed to and maintaining. So we're always open for suggestions around specific ideas or ways to do something, but I think it goes to speaking with Mr. Sanders, making sure the Office of Innovation works close. We work together, James and I work closely together to make sure that we're being innovative with those things. So we're going to keep the data up front, look at how we can do it and improve things. And I don't know if that answered anything you just asked me, but that's how we're working toward making sure that we're honoring those requests.
It did, thank you. And just as a follow-up, because you said, if you have any ideas, let me know. So this might be the opportunity to do that. Neighboring districts, the big district up the road has talked about, at an elementary level, providing classroom teachers more planning time. And because of that additional planning time to scaffold curriculum and instruction and make sure, their Tier 1 instruction is on point, that it provides an additional opportunity for those K-5 students to attend specials or choir or music or art or computer. I would be interested in seeing what that would look like here locally. Again, I go back to, I think the apathy that has plagued everyone over the past 2 years with what we've collectively experienced and just getting our children excited and engaged in school again. Yeah. I can tell you that it wasn't my math or history class that made my socks roll up and down. It was those extracurriculars. And so even at elementary school level, I would be very interested in seeing some type of proposal. And I understand that there's a fiscal response to that if we provided additional planning time to teachers at our elementary levels and additional specials time for our students. But again, I think utilizing ESSER funds over the next several years or even fund balance individually, I'm interested in to provide more enrichment and extracurricular opportunities to our students. So.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Without committing to anything, we had a robust discussion today around just that topic around teacher planning and PLCs and ways to actually provide them more, not only just more planning time, but time with people who are teaching the same content, utilizing the PLCs in a much more productive way. So that is something that's on our radar, and we're looking into those as well. But I appreciate what you said about the big district up the street, and we'll see what we can find out about it.
Well, and I think that's something that Mr. Underwood has done with securing the fine arts grant and being able to offer students in class one-on-one instruction in the fine arts, which
absolutely
is really important, and I think speaks to that point. I just had one last follow-up. The May 27th date is terrific. I really appreciate this also as a parent and as a board member. I want to ensure that when we flip the switch on May 27th, then there's going to be things that happen in June.
Correct.
That will fix and tweak and before, so we're not walking in just in August with all of that, right?
So absolutely.
Excellent.
So that's why it's a deadline. It's a deadline or timeline. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to do that, but obviously we know we won't have some information around EOCs until the last minute.
Sure.
We won't know classes that students will receive credit or not until after that, the 26th.
I was assuming there were other bullet points in there. I just wanted to make sure that there were other. But so my request then would be, I think this is very helpful for us. I wonder if sometime between April 19th and May 10th, perhaps this narrative plus some timeline and explanation can go out to parents of secondary students, because I've received parts of this information as a parent in piecemeal, but I didn't really have the context for the whole thing. And I think, as somebody who has an incoming ninth grader, it would be helpful for me to understand that when I look at my school links, if I don't know exactly what it means or if I have questions about it, where I reach out and how I can reach out and when is the best time to do that, so that I'm not, rushing down the door the first day that we open back up in August and creating problems for everybody involved.
Very noted. I think the communication plan will be important. And again, we want to honor the fact that our counselors have a schedule too. They're contracted, and we want to do as much as we can before they leave. And so, if I were looking at this as a former high school principal, and I could see that every student has 8 courses, and there are some math, science, social language arts, and kind of looking at those, and knowing that this is basically I don't want to say the majority, that this is where we're headed, knowing if there were going to be tweaks, but I think that communication plan would include over the summer, we'll be looking at data, we'll be making adjustments. So just because it's available for you to see on that day doesn't mean it's the final schedule.
Right.
But it is the schedule based on their course request, based on tentative data, and so we can definitely communicate that.
Yeah, I think this is very proactive, and I appreciate that. And I think
Sure.
just being even more proactive, and providing that information so parents have that.
Absolutely.
Trustee Hansen had a question.
Yes, May 27th is the day after school's out.
Correct.
All right, what if I'm a parent or a student who don't have access to the internet or a computer? What is the plan for them to be able to access that?
So that's a really good question, and I don't have an answer for you, but we will have an answer before next month. And I think that that's another thing we talked about with the one-to-one with every student right now, having that availability and opportunity, because we do have hotspots. Because to me, that's a bigger question if they don't have access over the summer. But we could definitely work to make sure that they have that opportunity, even if it's just pulling it up on their phone, because I think that that's an option that they would have.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Mejia.
So I'm going to follow up on Trustee Halsey's communication plan. Can we work with Mr. Fernandez and make special announcements as to some of the deadlines that may relate to parents and guardians and their students, their children?
Absolutely. We work very close with communications to make sure that what we're putting out. So yeah, we're right across the hall from each other. So just but we'll definitely do that. And again, these are our goals. This is where we want to go, and we know that things aren't always going to be perfect, but we would rather aim for the stars. What is that saying? If you aim for the moon, shoot for the moon, at least you land in the stars, or something along the. I haven't been elementary principal in a long time. There's a saying out there. I'll find out for you.
Any other questions for Mr. Mitchell?
Another question.
One more from Ms. Mejia.
Can we make this available, this timeline PowerPoint available on our website for reference? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Andrew, do you know where mine is? Okay. Something really weird. I promise it's not me. This is not mine. No, I do not want to give it. I apologize for that.
Elena, they have the PowerPoint. I
Okay.
think we'll get it up as soon as.
Okay,
that way
I can go ahead and get started. Good evening, school board members and Dr. Cardona. I am Elena Villanueva, the director of MTSS. So the presentation that I have, the information that I will be sharing with you all is just the overview over the questions that Ms. Halsey had asked. And so this is a collaboration of the Office of Academics and also with the high school. So first, I want to go ahead to when we talk about Ccmr, it really talks about the post-secondary readiness of our students. San Marcos High School is committed to communicating the importance of post-secondary readiness for our students and our families. Now the slide, which is that first page, it kind of highlights some of the communication efforts by the high school to include like parent sessions, course fairs, parent engagements, the different types of communication by Ms. Presley, and individual student meetings. The next slide. We focus on the PSAT for 2021. The findings provide campuses the opportunity to identify and align instructional practices for students that require additional support. So when we look on there, we identified, for example, that through ELA, we have the high school that has been working on student portfolios, where they are working on putting together information and aligning it with TICS resources, so that students that have gaps in some of those areas are also getting caught up on some of those aspects. For the math, they're working with Leap Forward on key mathematical standards and using scaffolded skills such as the use of the calculator, right? Really taking the time to make sure that students understand how to clearly identify just like the different components that are within the calculator. So just kind of going on there, that shows like the different aspects of the PSAT. The pathways to CCMR. So there are 10 CCMR indicators. The various pathways to CCMR begin with, most important, are teachers. Teachers as early as elementary begin to instill the career awareness, college and career awareness in our students. The pathways are supported by CTE, advanced academics, school counselors, college and career advisors, support staff, and administrators. Each group of individuals play a key role to support students become post-secondary, and their roles interconnect. So at any point, a student may begin with their teacher, and from there they kind of go over, okay, now we're moving on to the counselor, and then the counselor identifies the needs of the student, and so they might begin working with, if academically the student is a student that could benefit from being placed in AP courses, then counselors advise student in enrolling into AP courses. They also notice, oh, well, you may have not taken a TSI exam, and so they ensure that the student signs up for a TSI exam. And looking at SMCISD has elected to use SAT, College Board Suite of Assessments. The SAT is one of the TSI assessments. So I think to kind of clarify, so we have the TSI, which is So we have TSI, which is the Texas Success Initiative. And so that there is the actual enrollment, so students have to score a certain score on either the TSIA2, an SAT, or an SAT for students to be accepted into college. And here at the high school, they offer the TSIA2, which is through AccuPlacer, that students that have not had the opportunity to take an SAT or an ACT take a TSIA2 exam, again, as another option of taking, of being college and career ready.
And so what is the TSI, sorry, can you just explain then the TSI? Is a qualifying test?
Yes.
If you pass that test, then you're admitted. Then you would qualify for Texas State in the same way in SAT or ACT.
Okay, so there are 3 different ways that you could be. So it is called Tsi Initiative, and that is the requirement that colleges have for students enrolling into a college level course. Okay. Now there is a TSIA2, it used to be just TSIA, which was the actual assessment. So you have an SAT, ACT, and if a student does not have these 2 as being one of the qualifiers, then the third option is to take the TSIA2, which again, having a certain score, and again, different universities have different aspects of it, but really it does qualify that they do not have to take a remedial course. So you have to take one of those 3 options, and one of those 3 options also makes you CCMR ready when it comes to college readiness.
But I'm asking, is the TSIA2 is universally accepted in the same way that the SAT and ACT?
In Texas, yes.
Okay, thank you.
In Texas, yes, that is correct.
Not for college admittance, just for CCMR.
That's what I'm saying, like if you are a senior and you want to apply to Texas State and ACC, and so and obviously you're going to have to score a certain level on various tests, and so which tests do you have to take in order to even be considered?
Most universities are going to ask for an SAT or an ACT. Okay, and now there are some colleges that do accept the TSIA, again, in Texas, but again, it's going to be based on the different requirements of different universities. So different universities are going to have different requirements. Now, there are some colleges that, four-year colleges.
TSIA 2 was really intended to prevent kids from having to take remedial courses. So they're going to have other things that they want you to do, like an ACT or an SAT at most universities. But TSIA is a way for students who do not get the score they need to demonstrate Ccmr through an SAT or an ACT to demonstrate college readiness. That's really its
Demonstrate it to who?
To the university,
To the university.
or to the state. It's a state requirement.
Right, so there's one aspect in which the district is being graded by the state, and so we are getting a grade for our CCMR, but then we're also looking at individual students and their individual readiness to further their education in a number of places, right? And so what I understand you to say then is that a high school senior would say get an ACT score, and it would be a high enough ACT score that they could be admitted to Texas State, but the Texas State might say, your score was not high enough to place you into this math class, and so we'll need you to take this remedial math class. But if the student had taken the TSIA, ostensibly they could demonstrate that they were able to take the higher math class?
It's not either or. The ACT is going to tell them what they need to know. They don't have to have a TSIA as well as an ACT. The student, I guess, could opt to do that if they wanted to try to get out of remedial classes, but their score on the ACT is already doing that. Either if it's not high enough, there's probably a good chance they won't pass the TSIA.
Okay, but I'm super confused because at one point we were told that every student has to take the TSI, and then now we're being told that only some students, and I'm really confused as to who's taking TSI tests and why.
So I think that's why I wanted to clarify. So when we talk about TSI, that is one of the indicators of CCMR, okay?
So are students only taking that test so that they can qualify for the state grading marks?
No.
Or is there some advantage to the student for taking that test?
No. So in Texas, there is the Texas Success Initiative. And so that there lets you know that if you don't score whatever the number is for an SAT or an ACT, then you have that option of, again, when you're enrolling into that university, of taking the TSIA 2, and if you score a certain number, then you do not have to take a remedial course. So there's like three different, so there's like the big umbrella, which is the TSI. Everything is called TSI. Okay?
Right.
And then within that TSI, we have SAT, ACT, and TSIA 2, which used to be just TSIA.
Right. So how many of our students have to take the TSIA 2 because their SAT or ACT students' scores don't qualify?
So I do have a couple of numbers throughout the presentation, and so hopefully that will answer. And then we can also get you that information as far as like really identifying, okay, how many students do we have with SAT? How many students do we have with ACT? And then breaking it down to, okay, so now from this group of students that have maybe not passed an SAT or an ACT, then we can say these are the students that we're really working on ensuring that they meet the criteria to be able to not take remedial courses when they enrolled into college.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so next, is this my presentation now? Yes, let me move to my slide. Okay, so the chart here shows our AP school summary for 2020 to 2022. And due to the online learning, we did see a drop in student enrollment in AP courses. Currently, the AP program is working on rebuilding the AP recruitment process. However, we did see an increase in student enrollment in dual credit courses. So when we look at this chart here, you're able to see that the number of students that are currently in AP courses did drop. We saw that a lot of students chose to go dual credit rather than staying in AP courses. So we're looking here. And then we move over to this one here. And so this one here is the dual credit school summary. So the slide shows the increase of student enrollment in ECHS from 2019 and 2020. That was the first year that we had ECHS here at the high school. And so we had from 9th grade, if you can see here, if we're looking at 2020, we had a total of 116 students that were in dual credit, where now we are at 275 students that are in dual credit. So the number that we saw drop for AP, we did see that number increase when it came to dual credit. And that was an increase of 237% increase.
Does that coincide, though, with the introduction of the Coastal Bend program?
Yes, it includes both.
Right, so it's...
So like if you look, for example, if you look at 9th grade and 10th grade, so there we had like just 45 students, which is the 45 students here that started with the ECHS. That same year, you see here at 11th grade, we're counting those students here with 50 here. And then the 12th grade, we had 21. So again, in 2020, we had 116 students, which included the 45 ECHS students. And then we have the 11th graders and the 12th graders that are going through Austin Community College. So this group here are the Coastal Bend. And then these students here, this 50 and this 21, are the Austin Community College.
So we're seeing students, by and large, that since we've introduced the early college high school program, choose that over the AP courses.
Yes. Especially with the pandemic, we saw that students found this this other program be a little bit more. It was working with them a little bit better. I think the professors and the fact that you had an avid teacher that was kind of overseeing kind of like the progress of the students. So they had a professor that was teaching the course, but then they also had a classroom teacher that was supporting them and just ensuring that, things got turned in. Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Salmi?
Are these two graphs, this one and the previous one, representative of completion of the program or enrollment in the program?
So for the AP here are the number of students. And so remember that for AP, students get the credit for the course. Now, whether they get the credit, like the college credit, it depends on what they're scoring on that AP score, on that AP exam.
And for the dual credit, is that completion of credits? How is this being reported?
Yes. And so here, for example, the students that we're currently looking at, so the 2022, the 275, we're going to assume that most of those will complete. There might be a few that may not complete, honestly. I think looking at it, because these are current students that are in the program right now.
But the rest of the data points on this graph are students who have completed.
Correct. So if we look at the 2021, last year we finished with 245 students that were a part of the dual credit program.
Thank you.
And Trustee Mejia had a question?
I'm going to follow up on Trustee Salmi's comment and questions. So with with this type of reporting, do you continue reporting as to how many students pass their AP exams and how many students receive credit for dual courses?
So, and Ms. Smith, if you want to, because I know that she's the one that kind of worked on this information. So for this one here, again, we're only reporting the number of students in the program.
Right, okay. I understand that. But what I'm trying to ask you is, do y'all continue the reporting out of those students? Do y'all keep up with the passing or failing?
Yes. And so at the end of this year, so for example, when we're looking at our students here, so here is 2022. So we have 317 students that are currently in the AP courses. And so when they take all their exams this summer, we'll receive those reports. And then at that point, Ms. Smith will...
We have ordered 564 exams for 317 unique students, which means some of those students are sitting in more than one AP course. And as far as the graphs that are here, both the AP and the dual credit are enrollment. They're based on just current enrollment and past enrollment.
Yes, we track the data.
Does that answer your question? I want to make sure that we answered your question.
No, not really, but it's okay.
We track the kids who gets a 3, yes. Okay. Who passes a class.
That's reported out to us, and when we get the end of the year course exams of number of students who've passed, the number of students, and what they've scored.
Yes.
Does that?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the other indicators, of course, is CTE. However, it's really important to remember that there are two primary ways that CTE students are being provided with opportunities for career readiness. So students that complete a program of study, which is a student that takes 3 or more courses out of 4 or more credits, right? So if there are 4 courses, then 3 students, that's completing the program of study. And then also we have the industry-based certification, which is the one that actually gives us the Ccmr credit. Right now, currently TA is working on seeing what that percentage, because remember in the prior reports that we've had, we talked about how we used to get that whole point for CTE, for those coherent courses in CTE, and then that was taken away. And so then TA had information and that they had to go back and kind of fix some of that because they understood that taking it completely away was not the way to go. And so right now they're looking to see how they're going, is it going to be half a point, kind of going back to the half a point. All of that is still unclear. But we do know that students that are in those courses, they are provided with opportunities to prepare for a career, after graduation. Okay. So this chart here really is looking at students that are enrolled in CTE courses that have a certification attached to them. Okay, so just as Ms. Smith shared earlier, so we have 854 students that are the unique students, so the individual students, and those 854 students are enrolled in various courses that offer the CTE certification. And so there are 934 students, or 934 enrollments in those courses. So it is these 854 students that are also in multiple courses of which comes up to 934. And as you can see, even through pandemic, we've been able to keep those numbers up. In fact, prior to the 2019-2020, we were at 871. Now we're at 934. And then with the actual students, we went from 746 students to 854. One of the questions was about internships. And so when we're looking at internships, we have internships which are classified into practicum of students, right? So we have a couple of categories. We have practicum students, we have internships, and then the last graph, which is it really is just the seniors that are currently in the program. So right now we have 51 students that are in an internship, 66 students that are practicum students, and then out of those students we have 43 of them that are actual seniors. So if we go back at 2021, we had 53 in practicum, 40 in internships, and then out of those, 35 of them were seniors. On here, I just have just kind of a graphic of what the website for CTE looks like. In there, you will find the 22 different programs of studies that are available, and so parents can go in here and kind of find out a little bit more about the different programs that are available for study here at the high school. CTE continues to explore new opportunities for students by promoting awareness of CTE. And so some of those efforts for this year have been just getting that awareness of what CTE offers to our younger students. And so Mr. Odom has worked with the elementary campuses and the high school to ensure that our younger students know about the CTE opportunities that are available here at the high school. Also, Mr. Odom collaborated with CTE teachers here on the campus and administration to take part into the Exploring Our Rattlers feature by providing tours to families so that they are able to, again, see the great facilities that are offered here at the high school. They have also expanded their automotive program by adding the Automotive Service Excellence certification, and have invested in a new robotic equipment to provide students opportunities to certify in phonic, robot operators, the equipment used, and the leaders such as Tesla. And so again, they have one robot, and it's the same type of robot equipment that they have at Tesla. I want to say CJ told me Tesla has about 100 robots, and we have one of the same exact ones. And so our students really get that opportunity to experience with that, so they know, just really build that interest, but also be certified in that. Okay, so this year, SMCISD has launched the use of SMCISD. It's a digital test prep resource and is accessed through Students' Clever account. It's accessible for all students 6th through 12th grade. That gives them access. It's a diagnostic. Students are able to set goals based on what their needs are. It provides them with progress monitoring and tracking. And it also provides with test strategies. It is used for exams such as PSAT, SAT, ACT, and STAR assessments. It can be utilized by teachers and students. Okay, so the rollout began, and it involved teachers, counselors, administrators, Gear Up coordinators. So this is just kind of an outline of the different, just kind of how it was rolled out. Also, students have access to the Princeton Review, TI, SAT, and SAT, Khan Academy, and Tutor.com. This here is an usage report of SMCISD. As you can see here, this was a 2-week time span from March the 21st through April the 1st. This was right before students took EOC for English 2. You can see the number of pages that students view, the number of hours spent on here, the different drills. And again, this is just a 2-week time span. The information also provided usage report on, okay, the type of assessments that students were going in there to get preparation. So this was right before EOC. For English, and so we see that students utilize STAR English 1, STAR English 2, and AP Language and Composition. So on here, so for the class of 2022, so what the counselors, the administrators, and Ms. Delgadillo, what they do is they actually look at the students that have completed an SAT and an ACT. From looking at that list, they determine what students have still not met like the 2 components, right? The reading and the math. And so from that list, they begin to sort out different student groups, and they begin with seniors. And so from those students, and they began assigning those students to take the TSIA 2 so that they have the opportunity to not, to be in a college-ready course when they enrolled into college. And so they have 90 students, 90 seniors that have met Ccmr and have also met the criteria needed so that they are not enrolled in a remedial course when they're in college. This year, they also incorporated the Texas College Bridge. When we were looking at our Ccmr, this was one of those areas where other districts were really utilizing this in prior years, and they really took advantage of this incentive through TEA. The high school began using the Texas College Bridge last year, primarily with ELA. And so with ELA, students were selected through their English courses, English 4 courses, and it was just an additional support for the English 4 teacher, but also students that completed the 2 separate modules. One of them is just the different modules of just the grammar and then the other one was an actual essay. Once they completed that, then students were also given credit for having met that TSI criteria of ELA. And this year, the high school has taken that same concept and have added math. So currently they have 274 students that are enrolled in the Texas College Bridge reading and math combined. So when students complete those 2 courses, the goal is to have 274 students that meet TSI through this different component that we have not really used before.
So if a student hasn't passed Algebra 1 in 8th grade or passed Algebra 1 in 9th grade, then would they take the TSI in 12th grade to qualify them for graduation?
So that would be a decision that, again, that would be more of looking at what the graduation plan would be for that student, because there would have to be a committee that comes together to determine, like, can this be used or not used.
Is that one of the uses of that TSI math test?
Not necessarily, no. Okay. This one really, again, is more about the college readiness, so they do not have to take a remedial. Now, with the Texas College Bridge, there are approximately 54 two-year colleges and 14 four-year universities that take that TSI as that course, that if you complete this course, then you don't have to enroll in remedial courses. So that Texas College Bridge is not accepted by every university in Texas, but there are 54 two-year colleges and there are 14 four-year universities, including UTSA, Lamar, Texas A&M Commerce, UT Dallas. So there's a couple of really big universities that do accept it as being that completion of TSI requirement, and so therefore no remedial courses are needed.
Dr. Sami?
Thank you. I'm a little confused by your table. Are the numbers in the right-hand column representative of the number of students who are enrolled in the program or who are taking these tests in each cohort? I'm confused.
Okay, so cohort 2022, so this year we had 90 students that have met TSI requirements by taking the TSIA 2.
Okay,
in both
so they
reading
have
and
taken
math.
the test and met the requirement.
Yes.
Okay.
So those 90 students. And then the following, the cohort 2020 of the Texas College Bridge, the 274, those are the students that are enrolled in the Texas College Bridge courses of reading and math.
And are those courses offered during the school day in the high school?
Yes, and so they are offered, again, so the ELA one is offered through English 4. Now the math one, the campus had to be a little bit more creative because not all seniors are sitting in the same exact math course. And so how they're kind of working that out is they've identified where the majority of those seniors are sitting, and then working with that teacher, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Presley, and so working with that teacher to kind of embed some of those concepts so students have a small portion of that class period to work on that, so that way if a student gets stuck on something, they do have a math instructor to be able to support them through that whole module of the Texas College Bridge.
And then they take the TSI after completing the Texas College Bridge? I'm confused with the
Yes, I
sequence.
mean, they are able to take that TSI, especially if the college that they are wanting to go is not one of the 54 or 14 that I mentioned. So yeah, we would encourage them to take the TSIA or even an SAT or an ACT, right? Based on wherever it is that they're wanting to attend college. Because it does provide them with that, just with that support of really covering the concepts that will be covered in that Algebra 1 class in college. And so that really is the goal, to provide them with the skills that are needed to prepare them so they are not having to be sitting in a remedial course.
Okay, so then the cohort 2023 are current juniors.
Yes, and so right now they've had 19 juniors that have met their TSI by taking the English and the math TSI, TSIA 2.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's only 14 for the cohort of 2024. And from what Ms. Agodio reported, I think as of now, for the class of 2025, which is our current freshmen, they don't have any students currently that have met TSI. However, we'll start seeing some of those towards the end of the year because many of them will be enrolled in ECHS or dual credit courses, and it does require them to have met for the ELA.
Ms. Halsey.
I'm sorry, Trustee Arredondo.
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. Ms. Sanchez Villanueva, if you could go back a couple of slides.
Okay.
I'm interested in the ongoing test preparation opportunities and SHMOOP, if I'm saying that correctly. So, can you, I know like when I took the SAT and ACT in high school, when are our students taking the SAT, ACT? What year? classification?
So we have our juniors that take the SAT school day. Okay, so that is the first time where actually, you know, and again, they could have taken it before we even administered, you know, if that's what, but really during their junior year, there's that day that is designed for them to take the SAT.
Okay. And then ACT?
And so for ACT, students have provided guidance on registering for that because even though it's not offered during the regular school day, students do have opportunities to take that. Especially with Ms. Delgadillo, we want to make sure that if a student's interested in taking the ACT, that they are provided vouchers if they are eligible to take that.
And that's typically juniors and seniors.
Correct.
They're taking that. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. So a follow-up question to that is, if we look at the ISD provided data, it's 407 hours. How many juniors and seniors at San Marcos High School do you think we currently have? Can someone provide that information?
And we have 475 seniors.
So here, you know, if you just kind of extrapolate that, you could say that a significantly smaller number of students are using Schmoop online.
So again,
because
this
if every one of those students took 1 hour,
Mhm.
there would be at least twice as much usage here, correct? 407 hours spent?
Correct.
So we would, I mean, and I'm assuming that some students spend more time on it, some don't even get on. My point being is, although I think this is a great additional resource, this goes back to Mr. Mitchell's conversations and mine about the master schedule and building more opportunities for our students in the instructional day. Do I think this is a great menu of options? Yes. But when it comes to students who have participatory requirements outside of school, whether it's extracurriculars, whether it's a job, because a lot of our students are working now more than ever, I think historically, personally, I would like to see SAT, ACT preparation programming during the instructional day, or, and I would not prefer this, but whether it's like a 0 period or after school or something. I know personally I do not learn well online and in a virtual format, and I think a lot of people's opinions of virtual learning have increased over the past 2 years. Understandably so. And so again, I would just really appreciate and like seeing as staff develops master schedules and what course offerings we're going to have in the future. I think this is great. I think it's an additional option for students, but the reality is that some of our students just don't have the time outside of school, or they don't learn in a virtual setting in that way. And so individually, I would like to see more offering during the instructional day.
And so again, I want to go ahead and share it. I completely agree with what you're saying, Mr. Arredondo. But I think on this one here, again, it was just a 2-week time span, right, of this snapshot of this. I do know that Ms. Presley has rearrange her flex time schedule during the school day because she did identify, her and her team identified that students needed to be provided with additional opportunities and support throughout the school day where it's built in with, and so I know that some of her like department heads and unit leaders, and again, just step if I say something wrong. So I know that they have been working on really identifying the kids and like looking at like what areas do they benefit from. And so if they have, for example, a student that really struggling with math, they are finding their more skillful math teacher, right, to kind of do a flex time and work with that, like with a small group of students. I know that I actually spoke with Mr. Castillo there, the math department lead, and so I know that that is one of the things that he really focuses on, is really identifying like the students and then the teacher's skill set, right, based on what they're seeing that the kids are needing, to ensure that kids are really provided with what they need during that flex time. Again, this is a supplemental, right, and so we're excited that this is it's something really good. I think it's something that we can incorporate even within that, because then students can be assigned different aspects that they need, you know, whether they need something on STAR or more preparation with SAT, ACT. But I agree with you, and I know that Ms. Presley is working on that.
And I retract my previous statement. I forgot that it was a 2-week snapshot. I guess a more appropriate data set for me would be how many unique users are using Schmoop throughout the duration.
And I am sure that Ms. Fowler will be able to get that information from you.
Well, I just want to say that to follow up with Trustee Arredondo just said, excuse me, that I agree this is a great supplement, and regardless of what the unique visitors are, et cetera, I think it's a good diagnostic tool, and I think that's helpful, and I think it can be used in terms of specific practice for students when they've identified a problem area. But I think that this is certainly not the answer to the issue that we have in terms of making sure that not only do our students have the foundational education that they need to do well on those admittance exams, whether or not they're the SAT, ACT, or the TSAI2. But they need the foundational skills, but then they also need certain test prep skills, because given everything that they've faced over the last course of the years, and we know other districts are doing this, and they are doing it during the school day, they're doing it on Saturdays, they're doing it year round, and if it worked to just have students do self-directed online courses, then our students last year would have had flying success, right? That would have been, we would have had all-time high scores on every marker if that was a dependable program for most kids. So I think we definitely need to supplement this. And I like the fact that we're doing the TS, as far as I understand it, the TSIA College Bridge. That seems to me to be an in-class program with students to refresh their skills, to help them practice ones where they're missing areas, and to help them build up for that test that they need to pass, right?
No, absolutely. I definitely think that the Texas College Bridge is probably one of the best things that are out there. And I think that's why there are so many universities and colleges that are kind of on board with this, because originally it started with just a few, maybe 5 to 10, and so that number continues to increase. And again, it measures kind of where kids are at the very beginning, and so most of the scores when kids first take it, you're able to see like a 40, but then kids are able to see that growth. And so I also think that self, students kind of are measuring their own growth, right? Because they're able to see that, hey, this is where I was, I've completed 2 more modules within this component, and then they are able to see that they are making significant growth. And so I think kids and teacher both are kind of celebrating like the little successes right through the program, but then kids are feeling really good about, hey, I am able to do a college level course. And the course is available currently for juniors and seniors. I think currently the high school we're doing seniors this year, Ms. Presley?
I just think we need to scaffold that all out so it's available to every student as a junior, so that whether or not they're going to community college, whether or not they're going to a 4-year university, whether or not they're going to military, if they're going into career, or they're going to a highly selective 4-year university, right? That they also have a pathway toward improving their skill set and making sure that they are achieving at their highest level, and that's 100% of kids.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Okay. Move forward here.
I think we're at military exploration opportunities.
Okay, and so on this here, and so for CCMR, the actual M and CCMR for the military, it really is not one of the indicators right now for CCMR. However, we do understand that the military is going to be a career option for many of our students. And so through the counseling department, through athletics, there are different opportunities for students to learn about the career opportunities that are available in the military. For next year, I know that Gear Up has collaborated with the TAMU, Texas A&M University, to provide our students with an overnight corp trip, again, to give them a little bit more insight of what it really is like to be in the military. And here, again, even provide scholarship information, so we have that on there. Okay, and so this one here, I think it was like, okay, out of the students, like what are their post-secondary plans? So in looking at this one, this is very tentative information, because again, if we're looking at our seniors, the students are still here. And so based on what they have shared about their plans for next year, and even their acceptance, we know that 227 students have been accepted into a 2- or 4-year university. 274 have submitted an application to a 2-year or 4-year university. However, they're still waiting acceptance. And then 110 of them have shared that they will either join the military or just the workforce when they leave here.
This table is also a little confusing because you said you had 475 seniors. So the awaiting acceptance may have already been accepted to one university or college and are awaiting another. Is that how I understand
that? Well, that is actually, and so Ms. Chapman put this together. And so that was one of the questions that I had for her, because if I'm going to be presenting this, I needed to make sure I understood. And so she did clarify that out of the 227 students that are on here, some students may be double dipped, right? Because some students may have been accepted into a 2-year, but also a 4-year.
Okay.
And so the numbers are not necessarily students that are
understood.
Like, it's just, we're not counting just one student. The student may be counted multiple times. So this is just on information. So we'll have a little bit more information as we kind of get closer to the year, so students can actually submit like an actual plan for each, like, hey, this is really what I'm doing, and we really have that information.
Understood, thank you.
And so again, knowing, we talk about that college and career readiness does not just start with their senior year. It really should start as early on as elementary. And so we know that our elementary really focusing on like that awareness, right? Understanding what careers and colleges and opportunities are out there for our students. And then Schoollinks. Schoollinks is, again, it's a college platform that 6th through 12th graders have access to. Through that, they have opportunities of researching jobs, exactly what is it like to be a nurse. And so you get really detailed information about what it's like. You have a couple of different people that are interviewed on there. It tells you, like, this is what I thought it was going to be. They can also explore different universities depending on what their interests are. It helps them with resume building. Students that are needing a teacher recommendation can be submitted through here. College essays, college choice lists, students can begin to build just a list of information on there for that. And then we have junior parent sessions, G-Force mentors through the college and career advisor. And then, of course, we have Gear Up cohort coordinators for the class of 2023, and we have 2 Gear Up coordinators there. This information on here was, again, presented, and I know that you guys have been talking a little bit on that. Kind of going on this is really kind of ties to the information that I presented earlier, where I know that Mr. Sanders has spoken about with our department and kind of looking at, what is that curriculum going to look like, and beginning to research information on that so that our students are provided with a personalized instruction when it comes to mathematics. And then here is the number of students that are sitting in Algebra 1 courses at 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And next to it, you have the percentage rate of the different grade levels. And then over on the right-hand side, then you see the number of students that are sitting in algebra for the second time. As you can see, it is the 9th grade, the 126 students, which were the students that did not receive direct instruction in Algebra 1. And I know that our team and the campuses are working on a plan for those.
What is the asterisk?
I asked the same thing. And I think it was one of those where, like that number was significant high, and it was really because of COVID, to address that there was that learning gap with the year before.
Not a footnote. Thank you.
Yes. And that concludes our presentation, my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Cardona. I have a very brief operations update this evening. But before I jump into the presentation, I do want to introduce Mr. Anthony Shields. Anthony is our new Director of Transportation. Very excited to have Anthony on the team. Last 7 years, he's been the Assistant Director of Transportation at Hayes ISD, and before that he was at Klein ISD. Anthony's unique in the sense that he started as a bus driver and he's worked his way all the way up to where he is now, so we're very excited to have him and expecting a lot from him. So, Mr. Anthony. Thank you for sticking around this way.
Welcome to SMCISD.
We know he's committed. We know he's committed. So, like I said, it's very brief. Regarding construction, I know there's some items that we're going to talk about later on this evening. The supplemental bond projects, the construction delivery method so we can get those bond projects completed or started, the Miller incomplete non-conforming work, and the high school retention pond. Next board meeting, we'll have a presentation on update on the new central office. As far as maintenance, we did take advantage of a TEA grant. We purchased 900 air purifiers along with 2,400 air filters, which will last us 2 years. All of these air filters have been, or these air purifiers have been deployed out to the campuses. We do have some extras, and we've sent a message out to the principals if they'd like some more, because we can get some out. The other item on there is we're going to look at the way we rent our facilities out. Just based on some analysis of a company called Facilitron, we think we're, well, actually we don't think, we know we have some of the lowest rates or lowest fees when it comes to renting our facilities out. So Facilitron is going to be a web-based application, much like you'd see VRBO or Airbnb. There's no fee to use them, although they take 14% of our rental amount. And this is going to give us an opportunity to get our rental fees back more in line with where they should be so we can cover our electrical cost and the costs we incur for renting the facilities. And then finally, summer plan. I sent an email to the principals today. I had a meeting with my maintenance team as well. Going to really dive into and make sure we have a really good plan for the summer for our facilities. Any kind of maintenance needs to be done. We just want to take advantage of when we have these schools empty that we're focused on the right things. Transportation, y'all met Mr. Anthony Shields. We're also waiting on feedback from TCEQ on a grant for some bus exchanges. We've identified 2 or 3 of our buses in our fleet that we could possibly exchange. It's good that Mr. Shields is with us. He's had experience in the past with that grant and those type of grants where we can exchange buses.
I believe Mr. Arredondo has a question.
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. It's just a statement. Mr. Sandoval, I've shared this with you before. Individually, I'm very interested and optimistic that because of the bipartisan infrastructure deal passed by Congress, that we can be ready and waiting for those funds to be allocated to the state so that we can, in addition to what is outlined in the supplemental bond program, purchase additional buses in excess of what we have outlaid. So, Mr. Shields, you're going to be hearing a lot from me, you know, even if we have to send you all the way to Washington to shake down that money. And so thank you.
Can you define TCEQ for me?
The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
Okay, thank you.
And then finally, child nutrition. No updates from the USDA on extending any kind of waivers for the extra reimbursement due to COVID. The impact to us next year, 88 cents per lunch increase, 25 cents on breakfast, not increase, that's what we lose. And then we go from claiming 100% down back to 85%. That's the way it's always been other than the last couple of years due to COVID. The USDA has granted some relief. We think that it might happen again, but we haven't heard anything official. Do I have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Dr. Cardona. I'm here to provide our quarterly investment report and our quarterly financial report. If you look, starting on page 57 of your board book, you will see our quarter financial report through March 22. Wanted to point a few things out. If you look here, through March, you will see that we have collected 91% of our projected revenue, which is that $74,800,000 number. We've also expended 53% of our budget up and through this quarter of March 22. If you turn to page 58 of your board book, you'll see the investment report. I would like to report that through March of 22, we have earned in this investment report quarter a little over $71.2 million. And also I want to add that we earned a little over $17.5 in investment interest. Last but not least, if you flip to page 64, Ms. Garcia and I wanted to provide further information as a response to some of the questions regarding fund balance and what we have on hand. So this is a newly updated data table that we'll bring to our meetings to provide you with some information about our fund balance and cash on hand at different times throughout the year. Any questions?
And at this time, we were going to recommend potentially another budget workshop for May 2nd. We have some new information that we've received, and we think that doing a budget workshop on the agenda prep that's already scheduled and potentially the May board meeting would be another opportunity.
I think that would be great. I think this update on the fund balance, just looking at it quickly, looks super helpful, and I appreciate that immensely. I did have one question. Can you give us an update on the current status with the state in terms of extending our attendance relief? Because I think we'd previously talked about us potentially being on the hook for $4 million or more because of the student absenteeism, which is an issue that every district across the state is facing. So I'm wondering if you have information on that.
Absolutely, and I'd be more than happy to go further. But what TEA has announced is the operational minutes adjustment. So what TEA is going to do is compare the your 1920 first 4-6 weeks ADA to this year's first 4-6 weeks ADA and adjust the operational minutes to the higher. In looking at our revenue template.
Is that January to March of 2020?
Correct. It's right before pandemic hit. Okay. Yes. So what we'll be able to do with their revenue template is use the data points from that from the 1920 year, the first 4 or 6 weeks, right? And that will level us up, if you will, to what I would call a more normal type of revenue projection, right?
Great,
Does that
thank
answer
you.
your question?
Yep. And if we can get a further update on that, where it stands and what our projections look like at that May 2nd meeting, that would also be helpful.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
I don't see.
Dr. Selmy?
Excuse me, I apologize. Thank you. In your summary report on the fund balance, which I appreciate very much, I don't see our allocated funds for the construction of the new the central administration building. Am I missing that?
It's included in the board amendments to date, that $10.8 million.
Okay.
It's included within that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I did have one more question. We moved very quickly through that and trying to keep up. So the amendment, the 2017 bond excess is not included anywhere in this. Am I correct?
No.
Okay. Wait, I'm wrong or am I correct?
It's not included in this.
Thank you very much. I asked that question weirdly. The bond is not included in this. Thank you.
No. Yeah.
Right, without further questions, reports and information item E is the report on trustee continuing education hours. So the board president shall announce the status of each board member's continuing education credit. The announcement shall be made annually at the last regular board meeting before the district's uniform election date, whether or not an election is held. The announcement shall be reflected in the meeting minutes and, when necessary, posted on the district's website in accordance with law. A board member may fulfill continuing education through online instruction, provided that the training is designed and offered by a registered provider, incorporates interactive activities that assess learning and provide feedback to the learner, and offers an opportunity for interaction with the instructor. All trustees are currently in compliance with their required training. And required team building training will be scheduled after the May 2022 election to include the new trustee.
sorry, can I?
Dr.
ask
Selmy.
a question? Is that, we're not going to schedule it until after the May election? Is that what you just said?
Correct. We will not determine the schedule for that until we have a new
Okay.
trustee member, so that their schedule can also be taken into accordance. And I'm also assuming that that the annual TASB leadership conference will be back on and in person in June of this year, and that the board secretary would be soon sending us any information about that registration, so we can get any continuing hours necessary there too. Thank you. That concludes the reports and information items. I think that we will do approval of consent items, and then we'll take a quick break before we move into items for action. So, do I have an approval of the minutes for the special called board meeting on February 28th, 2022, and the regular scheduled board meeting on March 7th, 2022?
I so move.
Moved by Kathy Hansen, seconded by Miguel Arredondo. All in favor, please say aye, or raise your hand. All opposed? 6-0. All right, at this time it is, I'm going by the clock on the wall, which is not consistent with my, okay, it is 9:11. We will take a quick 5-minute break and reconvene at 9:16, please. Reconvene. It is 9:21. Thank you, everybody, for being prompt. And we'll now move into items for action. Item A, consider the approval of amendment to the interlocal participation agreement between San Marcos CISD and the TASB Risk Management Fund.
Clarification on that?
Please.
Okay. So we get all of our district insurance through, well, I say district, school liability, unemployment compensation, property and casual, workers' comp, auto and legal services through TASB. TASB has asked all school districts who do business with them to sign an updated interlocal participation agreement. The last one was signed in 2012, and all we're doing, any kind of interlocal agreements has to be approved by the school board. So that's simply what this is all about.
I move that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion made, motion seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item B, discussion regarding costs incurred by SMCISD associated with the donation of property to Centro. Is this a presentation?
It is not. It was just items that were requested by a board member. And so today, and I think Georgianne sent an updated legal fee, I think, last week. But these are just the updated costs.
Is there a motion?
It's just discussion.
Trustee Hansen?
Just to be transparent, it's a little under 13,000 today.
Correct.
Okay. So,
That's not the report that I see.
well, if you looked at the additional costs that were added in, that Ms. Loeb sent out.
We did get an email from Ms. Loeb.
An addendum.
And that supplements what's in the board book?
After this was put out, it was.
We got another bill.
Okay, and so the total to date spent on this matter is?
Approximately 13,000.
Approximately 13,000. Okay. Any other questions, discussion, motion?
I could say I'm meeting with the president, Ms. Rodriguez, next week because she knows that we're in training. Very nice young lady, very community advocate, and so she, I think, was at ease now that she knows this is going to be a longer process than just a few months. So Mr. Sandoval and I met with her during State of Schools, and we're going to follow up to start the process, and there's things that we've provided her for their attorneys to look at. So it's just they've just got to go through a couple steps, and then we'll go through the next steps, and we should be done, hopefully. Hopefully it's less than a year.
And so will it come back to the board for another vote? Or does it just move forward and?
I think you've authorized me to just sign the contract, but I will let y'all know once that contract is
So
signed and sealed.
the contract to donate the old Bonham campus and land hasn't been signed by El Centro?
They have certain requirements that they have to meet. They have to go to the city and cancel their certain things. We cancel the tri-party agreement. They have to have certain, they got to do certain plotting of the land. Now, the city can waive that, but she's been told how she would go through that process with the city, but that's between Central and the city at this point. And then once she completes that list, she'll get back with us, and then we'll continue the process forward.
Okay.
And as a reminder, even when the contract's done, the district still owns the property. They're required to maintain their educational mission to support students, and so I think that's not going to be a problem. But I would, that the district still technically owns the land.
But they're responsible for all the costs associated therein.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
So this
Trustee
item
Salmi?
really doesn't need a vote. It's just for information, correct?
Right.
No?
Yes.
Okay.
In the interest of full transparency that Trustee Hansen mentioned, can you please bring the full cost of legal fees associated with that when it's finalized?
I can.
Thank
you. Yes.
Okay, item C, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed MOU with Hayes County Public Health Department.
Ms. Halsey?
Yes. Trustee Arredondo.
For agenda items C and D, which were both requested by myself, this supplemental material was not included in the board book by the prescribed deadline as recently enacted board policy. I believe the county sent over information earlier today via email. And then the affordable housing attachment was not provided until tonight's meeting. So I'm going to respectfully request that as chair that you just table these items until the May agenda.
I'm happy to do that. Do you want to make a motion?
I think you can just do
I can
it
just
if there's
I can
no-
just table them
if
with
there's
your
no
consent. Okay.
opposition, yeah.
Then I'm going to table items C and D to the for the May meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item E, consider the approval of innovative course. Do we have a presentation from the staff?
Yeah.
So there's a list of approved innovative courses by TEA, and one of them is called Student to Industry Connection. We currently offer general employability skills and making connections 1 through 4 as innovative courses. So you would have approved those in the past. I wasn't here. But one that is also available, I would like to add as a series of the 3rd course. And we're targeting the students in ACL. We could expand it to other students as well, but we wanted to get it started since our students in ACL currently use general employability and making connections.
And so what would be the course?
It's called Student to Industry Connection. Do you have
explain? I do, but can you just explain?
So in the action, I don't know if this was included in the board book, so that little paragraph describes what the class is. So it's an opportunity to develop professional relationships with the student industry in our community. They'll focus on career skills, workplace mentors. We'll have some job sites possibility to go to. So general employabilities is the introduction course, and then making connections is more social skills, job skills, personal hygiene, those kind of things, and then we're out on the job workplace. So that's kind of the 3rd step.
That sounds terrific.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Trustee Hansen.
I move that we approve this, and this sounds like a really exciting addition.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Students.
We're very excited about it.
Second from Trustee Arredondo. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Can I just get
sorry.
a question
Further
answered?
discussion.
Thank
Trustee
you.
Salmi.
What does ACL stand for?
Thank you for asking. So it's the adjusted, I'm sorry, alternative curriculum learning. I used to call it life skills in my previous district, so I'm trying to change my language. So it's alternative curriculum learning.
And these are
So our self-contained program or students with intellectual disabilities in our district. Again, we can open it up to other students as we grow the program, but for now we're starting and targeting that ACL population.
anything to have these students check out work,
And career readiness skills.
And
Absolutely.
keep working after they graduate, because there's one young man who works at the little HEB, and he's been there since.
Absolutely.
And he always addresses me, Mrs. Hanson, and addresses my husband, Mr. and Mrs. Hanson.
So
And he started out just bagging groceries. Now he does everything except for being a cashier.
So these will be targeted for 11th and 12th graders since it's a third course. And then we also have our Crossroads program, which will help prepare them for the next step if they continue on with school up to age 22.
Sorry to interrupt, but thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I think this is terrific. As I was saying to staff during the break, one of the, I think, real success stories in our district is the CTE program at the high school. That it's very obvious to me the time and effort and intent and dedication that has been put into that program. I see it in students who are passing their certification courses online. I see it in talking to community members who tout the particular programs that we have and partnerships that we have, and I think being able to extend that same philosophy to all of our students and ensure that all of our students have those opportunities available to them is really critical. So,
And in addition, sorry.
Go ahead.
In addition to that, he's probably one of the highest paid employees at that HEB because he's been there so long. You know, and HEB rewards with, you know, continuing.
Yeah, HEB is a great educational partner for us in the community for sure. So, any other comments, questions? Then everybody in favor, please raise your hand. 6, all opposed, 0. Consider approval of the updated board policy BE local. Dr. Baez? No?
I think this was actually submitted by Juan pertaining to the board request. I should have sent Sonia Garcia home.
About adding agenda items.
Yes.
Oh, this was clarification of that language. I'm going to use my privilege to move this to May because I have also requested some changes to the board operating procedures, and we might as well do that in one fell swoop where we decide to either change the board operating procedures and then make the necessary changes in BE local at the same time. So I'm tabling that to May. Consideration of possible action to adopt the prevailing wage rate in connection with the construction projects authorized by the board during the district's current fiscal year.
Okay. So this item discusses the minimum hourly wage employers must pay certain workers who work on construction projects where state dollars are used to fund construction. So there's two options to determine these wages. One is to do a survey, which the district would have to do the survey, or we can adopt the U.S. Department of Labor in accordance with the Davis-Bacon Act, which already sets these rates for our Hays County locality. So that's what the recommendation is, that instead of doing a survey on what we would pay these construction workers or what we're required to pay them minimally, we adopt the Davis-Bacon Act, which already has those rates incorporated. And the reason we have to do this is because we have the next agenda item talks about job order contracting, which if we're going to go out and do our own, then we need to have rates already set that we need to be paying these construction workers.
Questions? Mr. Sandoval. Do I have a motion? Ms. Villalpando.
I move that the board adopt the most current prevailing wage rates for Hays County published by the United States Department of Labor in accordance with the Davis-Bacon Act.
Second.
A second.
And all its subsequent amendments.
Trustee, motion made by Trustee Villalpando and seconded by Trustee Arredondo. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item H, consideration and possible action to determine the construction delivery method providing the best value for the 2017 supplemental bond projects, high school retention pond 2017 bond project for incomplete and non-conforming work at Miller Middle School, and authorize the superintendent to take all action for procurement pursuant to the law and board policy.
Okay, so this discusses the construction delivery method, which I referred to as job order contracting. Job order contracting is a procurement method used for maintenance, repair, alteration, renovation, remediation, or minor construction of a facility. when the work is recurring nature. Due to the nature of the projects that we have on the supplemental bond, the pond, as well as the work that's left at Miller, we feel that job order contracting is the best procurement method, or the best method to the construction delivery method. So what we'll do is we'll identify a couple of contractors that are on purchasing co-ops, and we'll ask them to bid on the work, and we'll get the best value and make that determination on who gets the work. And we could have two contractors working at the same time on multiple projects.
Questions for Mr. Sandoval? Dr. Salmi?
This is specifically related to the high school retention pond and the non-conforming work at Miller exclusively, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
As well as the supplemental bond projects.
If approved?
All three.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I so move.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Hansen, seconded by Trustee Arredondo. Any additional questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries 6-0. Item I, discussion and possible action regarding 2017 supplemental bond projects.
Trustee Hansen.
Trustee
Sorry,
Salmi.
Thank you. I would like to move that we table this action until we have some further conversation regarding both the 2017 bond and the 2013 bond and the intended use of those funds.
I would be happy to second that motion, but I would like for more clarification on what exactly you're proposing we would need to consider.
So I think I've been considering, been seeking information about all of our alternative education programs at the high school over the course of this year, and I'm sort of starting to piece together and understand what all of those programs are, and I think that it's incumbent upon us as a school board to ensure that all of those programs are adequately housed in appropriate locations. And I think that the $5 million that are residual from the 2017 bond could offset some costs that may be needed to ensure that we have adequate placement for all students in all programs. So I think we need more information about all of the high school programs that exist right now in the high school, how many students are enrolled in those programs, and what the plans are for all of those programs going forward. And by programs, I mean Button Academy, Rebound, Phoenix, and the additional program that's currently being housed in the Lamar building.
Rebound?
Crossroads.
Thank you. Crossroads. Yeah. I'm interested in understanding how all of those programs are, where they're housed, how they're funded, and preserving this discussion of expending these funds from this bond, considering that the 2013 bond specifically allocated $5 million for the new Phoenix campus construction. And it's my understanding that Phoenix is no longer housed at that facility. And so I wanted to understand how that transition took place, how that transition took place, and what the plan is going forward for the Phoenix program.
So do you think that, my only concern about pushing this too far is that I think that there are a number of projects that we need to get completed over the summer. And so I wonder if you would feel like you would have enough time to get your questions to administration so that we could add this to the budget workshop that we're planning for May 2nd to have that discussion, or if you feel like we need to move it to the May board meeting for that discussion, just in terms of what needs to be discussed and the answers that you're looking for.
I've gotten a lot of the answers so far, so I think discussion at the May 2nd budget workshop is appropriate, personally.
So that's what I would propose, unless people, but I'll take some more questions in just a second, but I would propose then that you forward your questions or your informational items to administration this week, and then we could have that discussion in the context of that greater budget workshop, because we would be therefore looking forward at what the monies that we have and taking the bond money into context with that. Trustee Hansen, questions?
Mr. Sandoval, or Dr. Cardona, would this, if we table this, would this keep us from doing the retention pond and the non-conforming work at Miller?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Trustee Arredondo?
Yes, just further clarification. Mr. Sandoval, this is asking us to vote on the full list of supplemental priority 1 items, correct?
This was an item brought, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to answer for you, but I brought this item to the agenda.
No,
so.
the way I imagine this would be playing out is that y'all would tell the administration, these are the 1 through 32, these are the items that we want done with the supplemental bond funds that are left.
But as of right now, to understand this, the recommendation from staff is priority 1, supplemental bond items, which we've had that list for several months now.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
The only addition in the past several weeks is the line item for new central office.
Correct.
And I guess the conversation now is to delay the supplemental bond projects, priority 1 items or 1 through 3 items, until a conversation happens in May, possibly. Okay, so individually, I'm going to vote against this evening if we cannot carve out the priority 1 items from the supplemental bond list. I think staff have been bringing that to us over the course of several months now, and so that's where I am. I'm ready to move forward with those items. I'm comfortable voting on the full list tonight, not priority 2, priority 3, but full priority 1 and the central administration line item. However, if there's not a majority of the board willing to do that, then I'm willing to vote tonight for full priority 1 supplemental bond programming, and then having Dr. Salmi's conversation about remaining bond funds and secondary programming with that central office line item allotment of $1 million. But again, like I said, I could vote for the full list tonight as well.
Trustee Hansen?
I'm in agreement, especially with, I want to make sure that by not voting tonight that we don't cause problems with the building of central office.
Well, so we, last meeting, we talked about using some of these bond funds for that.
Right, so that's why I'm against holding off for at least priority 1. Let's, approve all of those, and then we can talk about the additional.
And if y'all think back to the email I sent y'all, the priority 1 plus the LED lighting, which I think is necessary, and then the allocation for new central office, that's about 5.5 million. And our savings right now is around 5.7. So we're going to be right there.
So I think what happened at the last meeting is that the board approved the expenditure of the fund at the current rate for the funds for the central office, and then we said that we would discuss whether or not some of those funds would be paid from the excess supplemental bond funds. So I don't think that there's an issue in terms of jeopardizing the moving ahead of central office. That's already in the works as far as I understand. And
That's my.
It is,
right.
Yes.
It's just determining how we're going to finance that. We've already approved it, so it's really an internal conversation or a public conversation about how we pay for it. But I would be in favor of having the discussion at the workshop on May 2nd, out of deference to our colleague who clearly, has ideas and thoughts, and I think it's appropriate to respect that and listen and give the administration an opportunity to, provide information and their perspective and recommendations, and then take this to the May board meeting for the actual vote on those expenditures. I think that we're not going to be breaking ground on any classroom spaces or any in any courtyards and such that students are currently using before the middle of May, correct?
Right.
So I think that'd be in favor. So other questions, comments?
Just to further unpack this as we're up here, I guess where I'm confused or caught off guard by tonight's request of having an additional meeting to have this conversation is this was, I think, mistakenly put on the agenda preparation meeting agenda, and there was a lot of back and forth and some excitement about what was being voted on and why and how it got there. But in none of those conversations was it like, let's have a workshop about some additional hypothetical facility. And so like that's where I'm like kind of like, okay, so it's like a new project or initiative that we're talking about. So that's where I am, right? Like we've been talking about supplemental bond programming. At the last meeting, it was talked about including the central office into that line item, and then tonight it's maybe instead of all of that exercise and work, it's let's talk about some third hypothetical facility, right? So I'm just kind of shocked that we showed up here tonight and we're here. But anyway, that's just me, and I'm kind of, anyway.
I can explain
Trustee
where it came
Selmy?
from. I'd be happy to explain where it came from. So we've been talking about the supplemental bonds, and I was fully intending on exactly what Mr. Sandoval understood, but in the meantime, we started talking about using some of our 2017 bond money to finance our administrative building. And so it got me thinking about the other bond that was recently, in the past decade, voted on by the voters of San Marcos ISD. And that included this new Phoenix campus, which was a campus intended to house 250 students and to serve the district's Phoenix and disciplinary alternative education programs. While they will replace the existing facility that has exceeded its useful life and does not meet the current handicapped accessible requirements and building code. So that's directly out of the bond from 2013. At some point, that $5 million was approved and went into renovations of the current Lamar building to house the Phoenix program. And at some point around 2017 or 2018, the Phoenix program was moved. The Phoenix program, which is a Tier 3 level intervention, was moved to the high school and is currently housed at the high school under the leadership of our high school principal. And I think that until we have a clear understanding of the needs of all of our high school students and all of the alternative programs and supports that we have in place, I don't think it's appropriate to allocate the funds from the 2017 bond, which had a similar focus on meeting student needs as the 2013 bond. I think that we need to understand fully what happened with the Phoenix program and that campus before we move to spend the rest of the 2017 bond monies.
Other questions?
Just
Discussion?
as a follow-up to that,
Yes.
and I know we don't want to start a dialogue here, at least not until this hypothetical future meeting. I guess for me individually, from what I remember, and Dr. Carbona or Ms. Presley, I don't think she's here anymore, can further elucidate us. I was never, individually, I was never in favor of jettisoning off 200 or 300 of our San Marcos High School students to an alternative campus. Do I agree that some students need a different learning environment and a different modality of being educated? Yes. My concern at the time and the way that which the Phoenix campus was being used, whether it was intended or not, was students who looked like me, who were struggling in a traditional setting, were sent there, and it removed and sense of accountability, in my opinion, of what was happening to those students, right? Like they'd be struggling here at San Marcos High School, and then they would go over there. And that, for me, was just a weird dynamic. I appreciated when the administration brought us, we're bringing these 200, 300 kids back to our home campus. They're San Marcos High School students. They're receiving the same diploma. Why, if they're receiving the same diploma, are they not at the same institution? So I'm happy to have that conversation about alternative school programming, but at least from where we were,
Yes.
it was my understanding that we brought them back.
And I think
for
that
intent.
I think that conversation needs to include the data around all of those anecdotal points you just made, rather than anecdotal points. Because I think that
they're not really anecdotal points in the sense that during this time frame, the law changed, and so we had career technology. These kids had to receive career technology
right, I
credit,
understand.
and so we couldn't have them. It was hard to get them over to the high school campus.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware of the 2013 bond because I wasn't here 9 years ago. But you know, when the laws changed, we had to figure a way to move those kids back so they could get CTE credit and have opportunities that they were not receiving at the Phoenix campus with the disciplinary students. Okay. And then right around that time, being in central office at the old facility and walking out to Crossroads and looking at their facility, which was had holes in the walls, we were like, well, this would be an opportunity to bring the Phoenix kids back, not overburden the high school facility, because we're right now built for 2,800 and we have 2,400 kids in the building. So from a facility standpoint, we're not at capacity.
I understand we're not at capacity, but are we built to facilitate, to accommodate all of the needs for our Tier 3 intervention students at this campus, and keeping in mind the safety and well-being of all of our staff as well? Like, that's the kind of thing I want us to discuss in a more robust way.
Okay, well, the Phoenix kids are not a Tier 3.
The Phoenix kids are not
rebound
3.
kids would be considered potentially your Tier 3 kid. The
Okay.
kid that has multiple failures, that
Okay.
disciplinary
So
infractions.
that's the sort
So
of
the
thing that I
Phoenix-
would like to understand more thoroughly before making any of these decisions, yeah.
So I think that's part of what Trustee is
Mhm.
alluding to, that the Phoenix kids are not really a tier 3.
Okay.
They can be, but there were also kids that were accelerating very quickly there, graduating in 3 years,
Mhm.
which is a whole different conversation. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion on the table is that we will table this item for the May 2nd workshop to have the discussion and then have the vote on whatever supplementary bond issues, items that we're going to authorize at the regular May board meeting. Is that correct? Okay,
Yes.
so
Thank you, yes.
if, without other questions, more comments on that? If not, then we will take a vote on that motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. I seconded it.
Wait, who's the first and second?
It's, Dr. Salmi made the motion and I seconded it.
Okay.
Okay, all opposed? That item fails 2-4. Is there another motion?
I move. Go ahead.
I move that the board approve the priority 1 supplemental bond projects as presented by the administration, including the central office line item.
And could you add the LED lighting?
Is that priority 1?
I had it as a 2, but it should, and that's the original document I gave to y'all, but it needs to be a 1.
All right, I'll restate it. I move that the board approve the supplemental bond projects as proposed by the administration, priority 1, including the LED lighting and the central office line item.
I second.
For the sake of transparency and clarification, since this is something that we discussed at the last agenda prep meeting, but we have not discussed at a regular board meeting, what's being proposed here is that we use $1,094,913 out of the supplemental bond funds from the 2017 bond to pay for a portion of the new central office. Correct? And this is a recommendation from administration? Where's the recommendation coming from on this?
This is not, we were just presenting you all the items.
Okay, so and this total of basically almost $1.1 million would cover the cost of the boardroom, cover the cost of the facilities for school fuel, and
Soft cost
the soft cost for those spaces,
for those spaces, yes.
and the monthly escalation cost for those spaces. Is that 1 month of escalation costs, or how many months of escalation costs are we
That's
talking?
a 1 month escalation cost. 1% of the total is reflected as a monthly escalation cost.
Okay.
So until this goes to bid, which would be June, July, we're probably looking at, we could potentially look at another, 30,000.
Okay.
So
Trustee
just as a
Arredondo?
follow-up clarification, so Trustee Mejia and Ms. Logue will understand. So when I was stating the supplemental bond projects as proposed by the administration, referring to that list, priority 1, to include the LED lighting, which was listed as priority 2, and then like the third bullet of that would be and the central administration line items. So to delineate, one of them was recommended by staff, the second one as well, and then the third one is an addition by the board, essentially, this evening.
Thank you for the clarification. A question, Trustee Villalpando.
I didn't know if you mentioned included in the boardroom, the part for the central office, it's a boardroom and also a little conference room for executive session and the dais.
Correct.
Right?
So the boardroom, the board conference room, and the attached school field facilities, and I think it probably also just the whole finishing out of that section. Correct, Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
is included in that? And the technology and the dais and the public space?
Exactly.
Right. The public space, which then actually makes the use of public dollars, the bond dollars, specifically apply. Do I have that straight? Is that everybody's understanding? Other questions? Okay. All in favor of Mr. Arredondo motion, which I'm not going to repeat, please raise your hand. And all opposed? That motion carries 4-2. All right, discussion and possible action regarding the middle school math curriculum. This is an item that I had requested information on previously, and the report was sent to the board members for the items of information that I asked for, and I asked that it be included in this board book, so it is in the board book. We received most of the information in the CCMR presentation earlier. I wanted to have a conversation with my colleagues and the superintendent and the cabinet about our plans, how and why we implemented specifically Algebra 1, that all students would be taking Algebra 1 at the 8th grade, what it looks like currently, and what the plan is moving forward, because I think that if we're talking about learning losses, there's been a significant learning loss, as we see in the numbers of students who are struggling to pass that course at the 8th grade level and even again at the 9th grade level. And so I was hoping that the superintendent, Mr. Superintendent, you could give us an update on where we're at and where you see this going, what supports, what the plan is, what changes we might make, et cetera.
So, we did have discussions with our principals, and Ms. Zeiger, Wendy Zeiger can also step up to the podium to correct me if I'm incorrect, and I might be. There might be times, but the principals approached us since this last discussion to ask for some adjustments to address, part of the learning loss with certain students, particularly some of our special education students who are moving in, who don't have access to 8th grade. We did meet, had a great, I believe a great meeting with Trustee Halsey and Dr. Salmi around this also, and looking at adjustments moving forward, what supports. And I'll let Ms. Zeiger talk about curriculum supports and how she scaffolded, is that a good word? Curriculum backwards and professional development and things. And so I think with our principals working with their communities, I think we will next year, while Algebra 1, we would like for it to be for all, we recognize that there are going to be groups of kids that we have to adjust and have 8th grade math for, and that this is coming from the principals to us asking for this request through Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Sanders. And so I think that's the way the system should work. And so
I think that's terrific. I mean, I think that if we can look at the way students are performing this year and see what metrics they're hitting, and then I know one of the reasons that we originally started this was to be more universal in offering advanced pathways to students and ensuring that all students, that not just select students, this is an equity issue. Correct. And so if we can set metrics and say that if a student is at this level in 6th grade, because students' needs have changed in the last 2 years significantly, right? And we have a responsibility to meet them where they are and to give them the best chance that they have to recover from that and be successful in the future. I think that's what we all want.
Yeah.
And so looking
we need to iterate as we ask our kids to.
Right, and so looking at where, and so that the kid doesn't have to take the Algebra 1 test 6 times, right, to finally pass it. Nobody wants that. And so being able to figure out how we can make those tweaks and adjustments and ensure then that also that when the student who's taken Algebra in 8th grade, when they take Algebra 2 as a sophomore and finish that course in the spring of their sophomore year, and then they go to take the ACT or the SAT in the spring of their junior year, that they have some refresher, some bridge to success on that test that is heavily algebra, right? That certainly was not the intent of moving kids to Algebra 1 in 8th grade, was to have them not succeed on the SAT.
Right, it was just to give them more opportunities in our advanced math pathways, and, you know, a lot of studies are showing that we want our students to go, you know, to be a lot further along in the math, because the new jobs that are out there are more, you know, there's more math-based and statistics and analytical, you know, advanced quantitative reasoning or job skills that people are looking for. And if a current student, if they start, you know, their freshman year as algebra, they may not be able to get to those courses. So that was one of the original reasons why we were trying to do that. So we are offering a lot of scaffolds, like Dr. Cardona was saying. There's a lot of programs that we have out there. The SHMOOP program, we're doing a lot of personalized learning and blended learning, where we're really looking at a student as you know, not every student gets the same instruction within a class period. So maybe you have multiple groups going on within one classroom, so that you can focus and scaffold up to those students and differentiate for students that are still maybe a little lacking in some of their skills. We've looked at, and I know that in several of the other board meetings, like back when Mr. McLaughlin was here, we talked a lot about the blended curriculum in our 6th and 7th grade to try to get those students more prepared for when Algebra 1 comes, and, you know. But then, you know, we started this a few years ago, and then COVID hit. And so, you know, it's kind of hard to say really how it's, you know, truly working, because we don't have all the data, and we don't have all the STAR testing for different years. And so, you know, we, like Dr. Cardona said, we are looking for an alternative for, you know, students. It's almost like an, you know, everyone's algebra for all, and then maybe a few opt out, and then kind of work it that way. So, you know, we see that there's a need to do something a little different, but, you know, we'll work with the student and do what's best for them.
So when will the students take the Algebra AOC, the Algebra 1 EOC? When is that test?
It's in May.
It's in May. So it sounds to me like you are maybe still in the process of figuring out what next year is going to look like in terms of who's in Algebra 1 when they're taking it, and what that curriculum looks like.
I mean, the reality is, yes. I think that,
yes,
you know, if the scores come back really dismal, the principals may come back and say, yeah, we need to expand this a little
So
bit.
that's what I would be interested in seeing next month, is a report on how students fared on those tests and what we're looking at in terms of pass and
June. Would we get the
so
scores
we
by
should
June?
get the. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but
Well,
we
as
take
soon
the
as we have
test.
them the next
so
regular
we
board
should have
meeting.
them before the end of May, especially since most of our students are testing online, and you get those results back quite a bit quicker. So we should know before school is out how our algebra students did. And then, because like they were saying earlier, there is another algebra test that they can take in the summer for those students that aren't successful, along with, you know, some type of intervention to make them ready for that test. So we will know that information before students leave for the year.
Then I guess what I would like to have, what would be appropriate for me, would be either at the May meeting or the June, depending on how the timing worked, to have the administration look at the test scores for those first-time algebra takers and for the second-time algebra takers, and assess and evaluate what that looks like, and also look at students who are taking the 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade STAR tests, and look at those scores to determine how ready those students are, you know, coming out of the last 2 years to do an accelerated 6th, 7th grade together, or 7th, 8th grade math class together, and move into that algebra, and then reevaluate and potentially propose back to the board changes to the program based on whatever metrics that will ensure that we are equitably making those accelerated opportunities available, but certainly being judicious in how we are doing that, so that we are assured that the students that are in those classrooms have the best opportunity to succeed then and down the road. Does that? Mm-hmm. Trustee Arredondo.
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. Separate of that request, Ms. Zeiger, I think you mentioned like providing an opt-out option at this. That is where I am as an individual trustee of if there are going to be modifications to the program, because I'm very, very hesitant to support staff, counselors, administrators looking at a student's data and making that decision for them. If we're talking about students being successful in an algebra for all space, I wish we were providing the supports for those 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders to get them ready for Algebra 1 in 7th grade versus making that decision when at one point in time it was, we're going to set the expectation for all, and we're just going to make it happen or work with the challenges associated with that decision. So if my concern is Algebra 1 students enrolled in Algebra 1 struggling in 7th grade, and there's a conversation taking place that says, you know, let's look at 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade math scores, then like let's look at 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade math scores, right? Like if the standard in the ISD has been set that every 7th grader is going to be in Algebra 1 and they're struggling, I want us to provide supplemental supports and instruction for those struggling students currently, presently.
Right.
But I would much rather us invest funds, programming supports in those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders so that they meet that standard in 7th grade. Because then otherwise we can just go back to optional Algebra 1 offering in 7th grade and, you know, have students in high school and 8th grade taking those courses, et cetera, et cetera. So I understand Ms. Halsey's concern, and I agree with her that when you look at our data, it is alarming. And I think there's a lot of additional variables and reasons why that is. But if it's, again, if the standard by the ISD has been set that in a certain grade, everyone's going to take Algebra 1 that initial year, and if your students are struggling, we know who those students are, right? Like we've already had their data following them for the past several years. And so that's where I am individually, personally, is at a minimum, if the program is changing next year, opt out only. And then we invest as an organization in those students who we know are going to struggle when they get to that Algebra 1 class versus saying, you've been struggling for the past 3 or 4 years, we're going to put you in the other math when you get to that grade level, because that is an adult issue and decision, not intervening before them and then making that decision for the student. Like, we failed you the past 3 years, so we're going to put you in the other math when you get to 7th and 8th grade.
Right,
So,
and COVID has actually, we know there's learning loss. And so when we implemented this back, 2018, I believe, was the year that we started it, and we took the test in 2019, and we did really well for our first go-around. And so we hadn't really built our students up to do algebra. We just had to start it, and, we didn't have the previous grade levels, I guess, making sure that the TEKs were taught and that the students were really ready. And they did pretty well, even without that being prepared. So since then, we've started rolling out, and it's slow. We knew that it would take a while to get there. So the next year, we started looking at a blended curriculum for 7th grade, where the 7th graders got 7th and 8th grade curriculum kind of together. And then we did the same thing with our 6th grade and our 6th grade pre-AP. So we're blending the curriculums. And then the following year, and that was, the full COVID year, we did where our 7th graders did a 7-8 blend, primarily 8, and they're taking an 8th grade STAR test. And so that was the first year. So we're trying to build these scaffolds into our curriculum so that our students are better prepared. And in fact, I've worked with Trista De La Cruz, who is the elementary curriculum specialist, and we've looked at some things, and we've pushed it down to 5th grade, and we're looking at pushing them down to 4th grade. So hopefully adding those additional scaffolds in there would help some of those students, but it's not going to help everyone. There's still going to be some students that struggle, and so that's the ones that we're talking about that might be able to opt out.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I had
Dr.
one more
Salmi?
thing. Yeah, the numbers you presented clearly demonstrate the learning loss due to COVID with the 9th grade rates and students taking algebra for the second time. And the numbers for students passing at semester are very encouraging for 7th and 8th graders. One of the things I noticed, and it's not enough data to make too much of a big deal about, but I think we should keep in mind, is that there is some lack of equity between the 2 middle schools. So the numbers are different between Goodnight and Miller, and that's something that I just hope we'll keep in mind and ensure that we have equal quality of education at both the middle schools in regard to this math curriculum.
And that's actually one thing we are going to be doing this summer, is we're going to be getting together with all of the schools, like all of the algebra teachers, and we're really going to be working as a group and creating what the lessons look like, and so that we have a uniform lesson that's being really taught at all grade level, or at all 3 campuses. That's our plan.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other further questions, then we will consider the approval of budget amendments, item K.
So we have 3 amendments today. The first one is just to amend our budget for legal services. We are down to about $7,000 left in our account, and we still have May and June that we need to pay. So we're asking for additional $50,000 to put in there for legal services. The next one is we get a property value study done each year on our property values. We just received the billings for the 1920 results, so we are needing an additional $77,270 to pay for those billings. And then last is the approval that the board made last board meeting for the central office, that we said it was going to be capped at 7.9, and so I'm adding the additional $881,441 to cap that. Now, if we do use the $1 million from the bond funds, we won't have to use all of that 7.9.
So since we just passed the bond funds to cover that, do we need to vote on this amendment?
I mean, we don't have to put it in there, but if costs change, I mean, we may have to use additional monies. It's just going to earmark it, so if we don't use it, it'll go back into fund balance.
I mean, I think if we're expecting additional cost increases, that should come to the board as a separate line item at this point.
Yeah, I think our vote last meeting was a capped amount, so we approved the construction at a capped amount. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Right, and I just took the cap as general fund, but if we're going to put the $1.9 million,
yeah,
we can take that last amendment off.
Okay. Trustee Mejia?
Well, it was Mr. Arredondo who raised his hand up first.
I was going to say, if it behooves Ms. Garcia, if we can just withdraw the central office amendment, because we've capped it.
Right.
The numbers changed twice on us.
Right.
We've, I think, approved both the first number, the higher number, and then we just threw in $1 million and change. So that needs to come back to us in May or at a budget workshop. I would be in favor of that, just so we know exactly what that price is. So.
Okay. All right, so we're taking the last one off.
So do we have a motion, Trustee Mejia?
Well, I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
In regards to central office, since this project has been increasing every single time that our architect firm comes and presents to us, and I know we voted on it already, but is there a possibility that we can purchase the materials for the project and store them somewhere? That way we can avoid the increase in materials.
It's like a Bernie fan of but not really.
I think we can look at any option, which we are.
Okay.
But that would be, so we got to take this to bid, and that bid will go out in June, July, and then that's when we're going to know what material we're going to need, but we're just not going to know how much, and if these contractors have rates with certain suppliers. There's just a lot of variables. But, I mean, we're looking, and I'll give you an example on furniture, right? So we know that there's a lot of commercial real estate out there that is not being used because everybody decides to work from home. So I've reached out to a couple of commercial real estate people to say, hey, these companies that have left, what have they done with their furniture? Is there any way that we can get it for pennies on the dollar or even be donated? Just looking at different options like that. So we can look at that, Ms. Mejia. I just can't commit to say, yeah, we can do that. But we'll look at everything.
I mean, I think part of the confusion was that the Stantec architect implied that if we voted on that item that night, that the procurement of materials would begin the next day and ostensibly save us untold numbers of dollars, which it doesn't work exactly like that. And I mean, if that had been the case, then that monthly surcharge that we're now looking at and that we've included herein would have been racking up since last September every month, right? Because if you could bank on all of the costs going like this in a straight line every day, then that would have happened. But that's not really the situation. They're going to fluctuate during the time, and there's going to be a process that we have to go through to be in compliance with the law in order to get that.
What we have to hurry up and do is get it to bid so we can lock in that pricing.
Right.
That's the key thing.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Salmi?
Thank you. Are the amendments 09 and 10 included in the budget summary y'all presented earlier?
They are.
Thank
They are.
you.
So I can redo them and have a new one.
Sure. No, I'm fine with just working it out. My other question is regarding the logistics of these designated funds. So when the school year ends, do the designated funds that are unspent go back? What happens?
Yeah, so we have a board amendment for the $7 million. So at the end of the June, when we close our fiscal year, it will go back into the fund balance, but then we're going to put it back in a budget line item. So it would already be coming out of the budget for the next year.
So all of these designated funds get zeroed out at the end of the year?
Yes, ma'am.
And, okay, thank you. And
would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd love to make a motion that we approve Amendment 2209 and 2210 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Salmi and seconded by Trustee Arredondo. Any further questions? If not, everybody in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Yes, ma'am. Trustee Arredondo. And it's just for 2209 and 2210. All right, with that, the board will move into closed session as authorized by section 551.071 and 551.074 of the Texas Education Code.
Dr. Cardona, can you send your staff home? But one of them has to bring me a sandwich. if they leave.
Some of them have to go to closed session.
Thanks, y'all.
Y'all go home.
Reconvening from executive session. The time is 10:55 p.m. In open session, the board is reconvening from closed session to take action on items discussed in closed session. The first item A, discussion action to propose. Oh, sorry, we've already taken that earlier tonight. It is getting to be a long evening. Item B, consideration and possible approval of administrator contract renewals and extensions.
I move that we approve as discussed in closed session.
Second.
You gave it, Dr. Salmi.
Motion made by Trustee Hansen and seconded by Trustee Salmi. Are there any questions or any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries 6-0. This item C is a consideration and possible approval of teacher and other professional personnel contract renewals.
I move that we renew contracts for teachers and other professionals as discussed in closed session.
I second. Oh, I'll let Kathy second.
Motion made by Trustee Salmi and seconded by Trustee Hansen. Any questions, any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 6-0. And the item D is the consideration and action regarding the superintendent's evaluation. And I am determining as the acting president that we are going to table that item for the May 2nd workshop, at which point we will discuss in closed session the superintendent's evaluation and potential renewal, etc. And we will solicit input from all board members at that time. We will not vote. And then we will have the formative evaluation at the June board meeting once we've had time to get the end of the year data that goes into figuring out his evaluation. And this is merely a postponement of this because of the late hour of this evening and the desire to be able to ensure that we have the input from President Cantu, who will hopefully be with us on that evening. So.
Second.
Would you repeat that, please?
There's no motion. There's no motion. We're tabling it for the May 2nd.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
There we go.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned.